Chapter 874. Gu Shan, who had taken on the appearance of a Xie fiend king, roared. Unlike the last time he came to the Wraith Realm, he didn't give the other party any time to waste. Several hundred flying swords flew back and forth across the castle. Gu Shan formed a hand seal. Tai Sword Array rise. The sword-infused wind scattered and swept across the entire castle. In a single breath's worth of time, the entire castle was erased by the wind. All the buildings, all the fiend guards were gone. The ground was as flat as a mirror. This was nothing short of a spectacle. The evil creatures all clicked their tongues. Only the fiendess and the cruel bone devil king were still standing in the air. Their expressions became heavy as they stared at the scene in front of them. Too strong. The other party is too strong. The fiendess spoke in a low voice. Devil King, this bastard who came out of nowhere seems to be quite strong. The cruel bone devil king glared at Gu Shan. Are you the true master of the Xie fiend realm? He asked. Gu Shan replied. That's right, I originally left this place to my little brother, but who knew he would be so stupid that he deserved to die? I'll return this Wraith realm to you. From now on, we'll mind our own business, the cruel bone devil king declared. You've taken over this place for so long, taking so much of this world's income, and now you want to just leave? Aren't you looking down on this king a bit too much? Gu Shan asked. Then what do you want? I want the elemental origins of 2 Wraith realms. This Wraith realm and your own Wraith realm. Then I'll allow you to live. The cruel bone devil king was surprised and angrily shouted. Damn it. You think I'm afraid of you? Ho! A gust of wind blew past. His limbs were all cut off by the sword-infused wind as his body fell to the ground. He couldn't even defeat Gu Shan last time, and now that Gu Shan had improved so much, he was even less of a threat. One last chance, Gu Shan coldly said. On the ground in front of him, the cruel bone devil king said nothing and continued to regrow his limbs. But he found to his horror that his wounds couldn't heal at all. Blood, flesh, and even spirit energy were leaking out from his wounds. I'm about to die. I'll give it to you, he shouted. This is the correct answer. As Gu Shan said this, she canceled the effect of the Emerald Skill Bleed. Skill card, Bleed. After equipping this card, whenever you cut the enemy's body with a sharp weapon, the enemy's fillings such as flesh, blood, steel, psychic power, spiritual energy, etc., will gradually disappear from the enemy's body for 10 seconds. Just like last time, faced with overwhelming power, the cruel bone devil king reluctantly handed over the 5 elemental origin of 2 demon realms. Very well, you can go now, Gu Shan said. The cruel bone devil king stared at him for a long time, then chanted an incantation to open a warp gate. Let's go, he told the demoness. The demoness did not move. The cruel bone devil king glared at her. The demoness smiled. All right, Lord Ghost King, let me help you. While supporting the cruel bone devil king, she suddenly took out a dagger and beheaded the devil king. The gate of light disappeared. The demoness carried the devil king's head, slowly walked in front of Gu Shan, and respectfully knelt down. She raised the devil king's head, smiled seductively at Gu Shan, and spoke in a tender voice. New master of the Xie fiend realm and cruel bone devil realm, I offer you the head of my enemy, and submit myself to you. Gu Shan stared closely at the demoness. It really must be said, this was a beautiful demoness. Not only did she have a delicate face, but her body as well as every tiny movement she made exuded a sense of seduction that could seduce anyone. Gu Shan was silently confused. Last time I killed her so quickly that I didn't notice a few things. She seems to be a demoness with a background. Gu Shan had spent quite a bit of time in the Wraith realm, fought quite a few battles, and even met the 3 most powerful fiend kings, so she could already guess a few things. The demoness seems to be a disciple of that fiend king. After all, only that one person was proficient in this type of seduction technique. What do you want from me? Gu Shan asked. The demoness lowered her head and spoke with a hint of nervousness and shyness. I am willing to follow by your side and listen to any of your orders. Powerful fiend king, very well. Gu Shan nodded. So you agree? The demoness joyfully looked up. She threw away the head that ruined the atmosphere away, knelt down, and moved a few inches forward on her knees to get closer to Gu Shan. Indeed, I have an order that I need you to obey, Gu Shan said. Just tell me. I will listen to you, the demoness softly replied. She reached out her pink tongue and seductively licked the corner of her mouth. Any male would be able to understand what she was trying to say. Gu Shan looked down at her and asked, I said I would let the cruel bone devil king go, but you killed him instead. Why? The demoness froze. Gu Shan replied, Die in peace, Sha. A flash of sword gleam. The demoness was cut into pieces, then swept away by the sword-infused wind and disappeared from this world. Many regretful voices came from all around, but the evil creatures here had already rationally lowered their voices. Don't be ridiculous. This powerful Xie fiend was ridiculously strong. But even more frightening was the fact that he didn't hesitate to kill even his own little brother, not even sparing a beauty like the demoness, truly cruel and merciless. The evil creatures couldn't even guess what he was thinking. This was a dangerous guy, full of uncertainty. At this point, Gu Shan turned around and looked at the evil creatures. Disperse, he said. The evil creatures all scattered. In just a few moments, not a single evil creature could be seen within a few miles. It was now that Gu Shan looked at the kindling UI. Lines of new prompts appeared on the interface frowny face. This was a one-sided battle. The enemy's soul power is still intact. You can absorb a total of, Esteemed Sir, Kindling has detected that you have an extremely rare, unique talent. Unlimited soul points. From now on, you can absorb all of your soul points without wasting. Total soul points obtained, 28,000. Now, you must make the following choice. Use Battle EXP to level up, or soul points to level up. You can only choose one of the two. Gu Shan couldn't help but chuckle. EXP. Soul points. This choice was all too familiar to him. Gu Shan purposely asked, Is there a difference? Kindling patiently replied, You can use EXP to level up at any time, but if you choose to use soul points to level up, you will need to complete the quest to activate this function. Kindling suggests that you use soul points to level up, as you have the rare talent to absorb soul points infinitely. Using soul points to increase your strength is the most suitable path for you. Gu Shan was a bit surprised. Huh? When did the Demon King Order become so sincere? It even knows how to be considerate for others? Gu Shan agreed. All right, I'll use soul points to level up. A new quest appeared on the kindling. UI frowny face now, issuing the function activation quest. Quest description. Obtain enough soul points to help the system activate soul points level up mode. Quest objective. Please obtain another 72,000 soul points to reach 100,000 soul points to help kindling activate its level up mode. Quest reward. Soul points level up mode. Special note. You have chosen the correct path. You will definitely become the strongest existence through this path. The order shares your glory. When all the text disappeared, a card appeared at the center of the UI. On the card, Gu Shan wielded a sword with both hands, hovering in the air. Lapis Grade True Self card. Sword Cultivator Gu Shan. Below the True Self card, there was a long gray bar, which looked like a soul power value. From the looks of it, this was the soul points level up mode waiting to be activated. Gu Shan silently nodded. In comparison, the War God UI's requirements were much higher. Not only did it require him to kill powerful enemies, he also had to spend soul points to comprehend and advance. But the Demon King Order's specialty was that it was unscrupulous. Regardless of how strong or weak the enemy was, as long as it killed an enemy, it would be able to absorb the power of their soul. This could easily break the persistence in a person's heart, turning them into an existence that only knows how to kill. Between the War God and the Demon King, one focused more on willpower, while the other only desired power. From the perspective of sharpening willpower and improving one's fighting prowess, the War God UI's method was much more profound. Although the War God was already gone, Gu Shan knew that he wouldn't turn into a Demon King of Slaughter, so he wasn't afraid of being changed by the Demon King Order. 100,000 soul points, Gu Shan muttered and began to think about how to deal with this quest. He naturally wouldn't go and kill those weak, evil creatures. He craved for true combat. That's why the armor was a must. Gu Qingshan immediately recalled the first quest's reward, that battle armor card. It seems Kindling had already prepared for the upcoming battle. Gu Qingshan drew the card. Chapter 875. Gu Qingshan took out the lapis card and placed it on the Kindling UI. As his gaze fell onto the card, the black fog that covered the entire card slowly gathered and manifested as a suit of armor that exuded black smoke. Immediately, the Kindling UI began to explain this card frowny face lapis weapon card. Black smog armor, full set. Description: the black smog armor is the prototype of the Demon King's armor. Although it has only been completed, it already possesses a lot of defensive capabilities. This armor has the following characteristics: toughness. Every time the armor receives damage, it will be shared by the entire armor. Self-repair. The armor will automatically repair itself whenever it's damaged. The speed of repair depends on the amount of soul points you expend. Black smog embrace. When you stand still, the black smog will conceal your whereabouts. Only enemies 2 realms higher than you will be able to detect you. Reading through this description, Gu Qingshan slowly sighed. As a sword cultivator, he really needed a reliable set of armor. Someone lent him a set of armor last time, but that was a family heirloom, and that cultivator even died because of it, so Gu Qingshan wasn't shameless enough to ask for a set of armor from them. And now, he finally had a set of armor that belonged to him. Gu Qingshan took out this card and placed it on top of the lapis card, Sword Cultivator Gu Qingshan, just like Little Dusk did. The card then disappeared. At the same time, a set of armor that exuded black smoke appeared out of thin air. Although this set of armor gave off an evil aura that seemed to devour everything, the armor's elegant design gave off a sense of nobility and elegance, which was quite unexpected. As soon as the armor appeared, it scattered into countless components that quickly circled around Gu Qingshan. The entire set of armor was donned in a single breath's worth of time. As soon as Gu Qingshan put on this set of armor, he seemed a bit more mysterious. He casually moved around and found that the armor was both sturdy and light, fitting perfectly with his body and didn't affect his movements at all. This was even rarer. Suddenly, a voice as heavy as a mountain sounded. "What do you plan to do next?" Gu Qingshan answered naturally. Of course, it's to fight on the battlefield. As soon as he finished speaking, he was stunned. This voice, Gu Qingshan tapped her inventory bag, took out a long box, and quickly opened it. The Earth Sword. The cracked Earth Sword was still lying inside. "You're awake? How do you feel?" Gu Qingshan asked in a deep voice. He noticed that the magical fluctuations around the Earth Sword had completely disappeared. In other words, Xie Daoling's time freeze technique had lost its effect. The Earth Sword was already on the verge of collapsing, and now that the temporal technique used to protect it had disappeared, it could enter a state of rapid destruction at any moment. The Earth Sword replied, "I can't move right now, because I'll probably die if I do." Gu Qingshan replied, "Don't worry, I will definitely help you recover as soon as possible." "How fast?" the Earth Sword asked. "As soon as possible," Gu Qingshan said. "Men can't be faster than women." The Earth Sword was breathing heavily. Gu Qingshan was a bit surprised and couldn't help but facepalm. This sword is already about to shatter, yet it still likes to talk trash like this. "Enough already," the Earth Sword continued. "In truth, after you entered this phantom image, I had already slowly awakened and saw what you did. Why didn't you say anything earlier?" Gu Qingshan asked. "At the time, it was a bit hard to talk, but now that I've grasped the technique to send my voice in a broken state, I can finally communicate with you again," the Earth Sword replied. Gu Qingshan went silent. Suddenly, flying swords gradually appeared behind him. They were the flying swords of the sword cultivators who died on the front lines, a total of 699 of them. All the flying swords let out a mournful cry. The Chowing sword also appeared from the void of space. It flew around the Earth Sword, occasionally letting out a reluctant woo-woo sound. Gu Qingshan froze. What does that mean? Could it be? Gu Qingshan's heart slowly sank into the bottomless abyss. "Tell me, what's your current state?" He tried his best to ask with a calm voice. The Earth Sword replied. I'm fine. I'll probably be fine until you actually find a girlfriend. Gu Qing Shan pursed his lips. He could hear a sense of strain from the Earth Sword voice. The Earth Sword was already feeling a bit strained after only saying a few words. Gu Qing Shan's eyes twitched a bit as he looked at the kindling UI. The order had always had the most basic function, which was to display items. At this point, lines of blood-red text appeared on the kindling. UI, frowny face Earth Sword, weighs 86,370,000 tons, has the artifact Spirit Thaumaturgy. Bear your own weight. This sword is on the verge of shattering. Artifact Spirit is about to perish. Gu Qing Shan silently read these 2 lines of blood-red text and asked kindling, how much longer can it last? Kindling replied, the order is currently in its nascent state. It's a bit hard to check the sword's current state. Please pay 1,000 soul points. Very well. The order is currently checking. The results of the investigation are out. In one day, it will completely collapse. One day, Gu Qing Shan felt like all the blood in his body was about to freeze. One day isn't enough time to do anything. He stared blankly at the Earth Sword, unable to say anything. At this point, the Earth Sword seemed to have noticed and spoke. Gu Qing Shan, you don't need to save me anymore, why not? Gu Qing Shan blankly asked. Because if you save me, you'll be abandoning your path, the Earth Sword replied. My path. Gu Qing Shan didn't quite understand. That's right, you're a sword cultivator, not a killing machine. Even if you fell into the Wraith Realm to save me and fought against countless evil creatures, the more you fight against them, the more you'll look like an evil creature. The Earth Sword's voice was full of worry. Not to mention, you've once again carried the Demon King order. What it wants to nurture is a Demon King, not a sword cultivator. So it must be constantly trying to change you. Don't worry, I won't be changed, Gu Qing Shan replied. The Earth Sword continued. When a person fights against an evil dragon for too long, they'll also become an evil dragon. When a person falls into the Demon King order and the evil creatures, they'll eventually become one of them. The Earth Sword sighed, then continued. Gu Qing Shan, I hope that you'll always be a sword cultivator, not an evil creature. Gu Qing Shan, you don't need to fight against the evil creatures to save me, and don't make any deals with the Demon King order. As long as you maintain the heart of a sword cultivator as your sword, I can die without regrets. Gu Qing Shan silently listened. These were most likely the Earth Sword's last words. It didn't want him to get involved again. Gu Qing Shan stayed silent for a bit, then muttered, Rest well. After you've recovered, you'll fight by my side. Saying so, he closed the box, carefully sealed it, and put it back into his inventory bag. Following that, he took out a large map and spread it out at his feet. This was a map of the Wraith Realm that he left behind during his previous trip to the Wraith Realm. Such a map was worth enough to exchange for a large amount of resources in the Wraith Realm. On the map, several thousand Wraith Realms were scattered all over the place. But if you take a closer look, you'll notice that these scattered Wraith Realms were divided into 3 main groups. These 3 groups belong to the 3 most powerful Fiend Kings of the Wraith Realm. The Blood Demon Duke, the Holy Pure Priestess, the Lord of Total Distortion. The last time Gu Qing Shan came to the Wraith Realm, she attracted the attention of the 3 Fiend Kings because she fused too many fragments of the Wraith Realm. As her pursuers approached the Wraith Realm, Gu Qing Shan conveniently offered the fused Wraith Realm to the Blood Demon Duke and escaped. After all, the Xieqi Fiend Realm was originally within the Blood Demon Duke's sphere of influence. But this time was different. I only have 1 day, so I have to think of a way to delay the Earth Sword's death. The Blood Demon Duke worshipped violence and offensive techniques. He didn't specialize in temporal, sealing, or life-related abilities. The Holy Pure Priestess wasn't good either. She forced everyone to call her holy or pure, but in truth, all she had were charm and sacrificial techniques. Even the Blood Demon Duke of the previous generation was charmed by her in battle and became a ghost under her skirt. Gu Qing Shan suspected that the Fiendess was also her disciple. Even the Holy Pure Priestess power couldn't save the Earth Sword. And so, Gu Qing Shan's gaze turned towards a faraway ocean, the Chaos Demonic Sea. This was the Lord of Total Distortion's sphere of influence. This fiend king had many mystic-type abilities and was the most eerie existence among the several thousand wraith realms. Under normal circumstances, even a holy, pure priestess wouldn't want to provoke this fiend king. From the fiend king's several 10,000 years of fighting, he didn't have any mystic-type abilities that could delay the Earth Sword's life either. But this ocean was Gu Qing Shan's only hope, because the Lord of Total Distortion had clearly stated that only evil creatures with mystic-type abilities could move about within the chaos demonic sea. Time, fate, life, destruction, and alteration, all of these were related to mysticism. In other words, only the chaos demonic sea had unique evil creatures that might have a mystic-type ability to slow time. Gu Qing Shan quickly thought about it. He didn't want to waste even a single minute right now. If I really want to go to the chaos demonic sea, I must have mystic-type abilities. Without the War God UI, I can't use Starflame War God title skill. War God skills and War God title can't be used anymore. Only the thaumaturgies that I've already grasped and fused with me can be used. Does Dream Jolt count as a mystic-type ability? What about Shadow Shift? In the end, in a place like the Chaos Demonic Sea, the one that most resembles a mystic-type ability is... Gu Qing Shan looked at the Chao Yin sword that was hovering next to him. He told the Chao Yin sword, "The Earth Sword won't let me save it, saying that I would fall and fall because of this. What do you think?" Oh. The Chao Yin sword let out a sorrowful cry. Gu Qing Shan nodded. "That's right, it's about to die, yet it's still running out to spout such nonsense. In truth, which evil creature is more vicious than I am? The reason why the evil creatures are with me is because they want to be on guard against themselves falling. Don't you think so?" Xiao. The Chao Yin sword understood what he meant and hurriedly tapped its hilt, letting out a whistling sound. "You also agree with me?" "Very well." Gu Qing Shan pointed at the ocean on the map and said, "This is the Chaos Demonic Sea. Where there's an ocean, I need you to fight alongside me. Let's find a way to save the Earth Sword. What do you say?" Chapter 876. The Rusty Stain Bar. This was a bar that sat at the edge of the Chaos Demonic Sea. The Lord of Total Distortion had cast Shelter of the Sea, Affinity of the Sea, Child of the Sea, and several other mystic-type techniques on this place, so this place wouldn't be attacked by demonic sea creatures. Demonic sea creatures. At the bottom of the ocean, there were ancient demonic sea creatures that had lived for over 100 million years. After going through the baptism of time, their bodies had become terrifying weapons, not to mention their strength. When the divine race and desolate race split the primordial wraith realm, they also felt that this place was too troublesome, so they purposely avoided this vast ocean. At this point, the storm above the ocean was becoming more and more intense. The sky was dark. The evil creatures obediently stayed inside the bar, listening to the earth-shattering roar coming from the ocean outside. A fiery fiend muttered, "The power fluctuations this time are a bit strong. I bet that monster has lived for at least 6 million years." Another fiend followed up. "No, this voice appeared once 30 years ago. At the time, the owner of the bar said that this big guy was still in his infancy, probably only about 2 million years old," the flame fiend replied. "All right, who cares how long it has lived? Every time I come here, I always feel very dejected. Why?" "Because you know that you will never be able to eat their flesh," another fiend chimed in. "That's true. The mother of that monster just now had lived for 50 million years. She loves to eat us the most. I bet you don't want to see her another drunken devil mocked. So why are you trash still lingering here and not leaving?" It was so strong that none of the other fiends dared to say anything. Only the bartender continued. "There are too many opportunities in the demonic sea. Our master welcomes all who wish to explore. Also, you've drunk too much. Please be careful not to cause any trouble in the bar." Hearing the bartender's words, the fiend seemed to have realized something and went silent. It lowered its head, minding its own business and drinking alone, no longer mocking others. Bam! At this point, the door of the bar was opened. Amidst the howling storm, a handsome demon walked into the bar. His entire body was clean, not a single part of his body was wet from the rain. This fiend was very unfamiliar, so he immediately attracted the attention of some of the fiends who had been living here for a long time. The seawater of the chaotic demonic sea was filled with all sorts of violent energies. It was not something that could be dealt with by ordinary water manipulation abilities. This could only be achieved by directly communicating with the ocean. It seemed that this demon's ability was related to the sea. Everyone secretly pondered. The devil went straight to the bar counter. "What would you like to drink?" the bartender asked. "Thank you, but no need," Gu Qingshan said. "You came to the bar to avoid the storm. If you don't drink, the boss won't be happy," the bartender said straightforwardly. "Although I don't drink, I have a deal to discuss," Gu Qingshan said. The bartender smiled and said, "Oh, I see. This is understandable. May I know your identity?" "The Xieqi Fiend King," Gu Qingshan answered. The bartender looked at Gu Qingshan, seemingly lost in his memories. "The Xieqi Fiend King? Let me take a look at today's news. I got it. He just killed 2 demon kings from the demon world. His appearance and race type are also correct. TSK, his strength is also very outstanding." The fiends and devils who were listening on the side quickly looked away. A powerful fiend and devil that had 2 demon realms under his command. This guy wasn't a newbie, so he wasn't worth messing with. Another bartender said, "If there's no problem, then give him the Lord class treatment. That's right. Since you have 2 demon realms under your command, you're qualified to receive Lord class treatment." "Thank you," Gu Qingshan said. He casually tossed a few magic diamonds on the bar counter. Magic diamonds were hard currency. Whether it was used for forging, embedding, casting, trading, or hoarding, they could all be used. Seeing these magic diamonds, the bartender's smile became even brighter. A lord of the demon world who was generous with money. Such a person would be welcomed no matter where he went. The bartender asked, "I'm sorry, but I have to ask you one last question. Do you have a mystic type ability?" "Of course, I know your master's rules, and I'm willing to abide by them. After all, I'm here to do business," Gu Qingshan calmly replied. The bartender nodded. His impression of her improved. The other party had already done enough research on this place, doesn't seem to have any violent tendencies, and doesn't seem to have any bad intentions. "There are simply too few fiend and devil lords like that," the bartender replied. "Then there's no problem. On behalf of my master, I welcome you to the chaos demonic sea." He came out from behind the bar counter and personally led Gu Qingshan to a small, dark door at the back of the bar. "Please follow me." The bartender lightly knocked on the door a few times and gestured to Gu Qingshan. "Very well," Gu Qingshan replied. The 2 of them entered the door. The dim light suddenly brightened. Gu Qingshan found herself standing in a large square. The square was completely paved with bricks. The roads were clean, sturdy, and wide. At the end of the square was a grand cathedral that reached the sky. Various screams could be heard from the outer walls of the cathedral. As Gu Qingshan looked around, she saw that the outer walls of the cathedral were filled with corpses, some of which had already lost their flesh and blood, leaving only bones behind. Even so, the bones were still struggling to leave the outer walls of the cathedral. On the outer walls of the cathedral, molten lava continuously flowed without stopping. "Is this your first time here?" The bartender noticed Gu Qingshan's gaze and asked. "That's right," Gu Qingshan replied. Perhaps it was because the magic diamonds had taken effect, the bartender patiently explained. "It took quite a bit of effort to fish this cathedral out from the depths of the sea, and these fishers still haven't died even now," he shrugged and continued. "The master also spent a lot of effort to make these loyal fishers fall into eternal slumber, but this cathedral was too interesting. The living beings that were glued to the outer walls all became a part of it, unable to rest in peace for the rest of their lives, and then?" Gu Qingshan asked. "And then, the master felt that this wasn't too bad," the bartender replied. "Is this really an ancient structure that was buried deep under the sea?" Gu Qingshan asked with interest. "Indeed, it's quite a good antique. The master has been studying it for the last few hundred years," the bartender replied. Gu Qingshan nodded, expressing that she understood. The master of the Rusty Stain Bar was the lord of total distortion. As everyone knew, He loved to excavate ancient artifact from the depths of the demonic sea. At this point, a horse carriage arrived from the other side of the square and stopped in front of Gu Shan and the bartender. The bartender opened the door and said, "Please get in, Sir Ruler. You'll be heading to the cathedral to complete your business." "Very well. Thank you very much. I'll treat you to a drink when I return," Gu Shan replied. The bartender laughed, revealing a mouth full of sharp teeth. "Sir Lord, you are indeed a very forthright customer. Let me give you one last piece of advice. Please go ahead. The master's rule is to be fair, but the cathedral also has its own rule, which is to not tell lies. As long as you can do these two things, you won't have to worry about becoming a decoration on the cathedral's outer walls. Thank you." The horse carriage started to move and brought Gu Shan towards the cathedral. The carriage was pulled by 6 black-scaled seahorses, but there was no coachman. Fortunately, the seahorses seemed to have gotten used to this route, so the carriage was also very spacious and comfortable, so there weren't any bumps along the way. Gu Shan sat on the horse carriage, silently thinking about the bartender's advice. A place of business, without the principle of fairness, would not be able to thrive. So the Lord of Total Distortion wasn't wrong about this. As for the cathedral, Gu Shan was very sure that the evil creatures that followed the Lord of Total Distortion into the sea abyss were all experts. Otherwise, the Lord of Total Distortion wouldn't have brought them along. But now, they couldn't die, nor could they live. They had become a part of the cathedral, enduring eternal torment. Not telling lies, for evil creatures, this is a special kind of torture. Gu Shan chuckled, but her expression was a bit helpless. Indeed, this was also a hindrance for him. Time quickly passed. The horse carriage stopped right in front of the cathedral. A middle-aged man who appeared to be a smart and capable man opened the carriage door for Gu Shan. "Sir Xieqi Ruler, I'm a first-class trader of the Chaos Demonic Sea Exploration Association. At your service," the middle-aged man politely spoke. "Then I'll have to trouble you. I need to issue a mission as soon as possible," Gu Shan said. The middle-aged man replied, "I'll make it clear first, for every mission, transaction, treasure hunting, or battle, the master will take 30% of the reward." "I understand," Gu Shan replied. "Then there is no problem," the middle-aged man smiled. "Sir Ruler, this way please. I will lead you to the mission hall." Chapter 877. As soon as she entered the cathedral, a thick smell of blood and burnt flesh could be felt. Gu Shan scowled and looked around, only to see that there were evil creatures whose bodies had been sunk into the walls of the cathedral, still struggling to break free. They couldn't die. They could only stay eternally soaked in the boiling lava. With expressions of pain and despair, the evil creatures opened their mouths and tried to scream. But they couldn't make any sound at all. It was as if the cathedral had taken away their voices as well. The terrifying scene of silence could be seen on every wall of the church. The middle-aged man noticed Gu Shan's gaze and smiled. "Those who like to play tricks always end up in a bad state, don't you think? Every day that the evil creatures don't play tricks makes them feel uncomfortable," Gu Shan replied. "It's rare to find a guest as self-aware as you, Sir Ruler." While they were talking, an evil creature with scales all over its body stopped. He looked at the wall in surprise and called out, "Old friend, why are you here?" In front of him, an evil creature had been sunk into the wall, leaving only its limbs and head sticking out. "Save me, old friend, get me out of here," the evil creature loudly called out for help. "This is the Lava Cathedral. I can't do anything, help me," begged the Lord of Total Distortion. "As long as he's willing to help, I'm willing to offer my everything." "Your everything?" Your goods. That's a good idea." The evil creature with scales all over its body appeared greedy and quickly left the cathedral. From the looks of it, he knew exactly where the other party's goods were kept. There were a lot of evil creatures coming and going inside the cathedral. It could even be described as bustling with activity, but no one paid any attention to this. Gu Shan didn't say anything and followed the middle-aged man through the main hall, down a long hallway, up a flight of stairs, and into a small room. Although the room was small, it had all kinds of furniture. There was even a small fireplace. "This is a private room specially made to serve the ruler." The middle-aged man clapped his hands. A long table was immediately filled with steaming hot dishes, as well as a large ice bucket filled with 7 to 8 bottles of liquor. The middle-aged man politely replied, "You came all the way from the Xie fiend realm. Please take a moment to rest. There is another lord in front of you. Once the appraiser is done with him, he'll come to see you. Thank you." Gu Qingshan nodded. He walked to the table, picked a bottle of wine at random, opened it, and poured himself a glass. The Chaos Demonic Seas appraiser was very famous, and he usually only worked for demonic lords. He was an incredible mystic-type master. Since there was only one lord in front of him, he would just have to wait. The middle-aged man smiled, closed the door, and left. It didn't take long. When Gu Qingshan was drinking the 5th glass of wine, there was a knock on the door. "Please come in." Gu Qingshan put down her glass and said. The door opened. A graceful old man walked in from the outside. Once a devil reached a higher order, they would also like to disguise themselves as a human to hide their original race and identity. Human form took up very little space, not to mention, from experience, using human form to communicate was very convenient. Taking human form was also a common high-level skill that only a high-ranking devil or fiend could use. "Welcome, Xie Fiend King. Your battle prowess was very impressive. If I didn't see the power of elemental lightning, I would have mistaken you for a human." The old man smiled and said. Gu Qingshan smiled and said nothing. "I can't lie." The old man asked again. "Then, why did you come to the Chaos Demonic Sea as soon as you obtained 2 evil realms?" "Esteemed appraiser, I came here to issue a quest," Gu Qingshan replied. Hearing that, the old man seemed a bit disinterested. A quest? That's very simple. I will have my subordinates do it for you," Gu Qingshan replied. "I'm afraid I'll need your help with this." He took out a small bag and tossed it to the other party. The old man received the bag, waited a bit, and smiled. "I can feel how heavy it is. It seems your quest isn't as simple as it seems. Please tell me what kind of quest you want me to issue." "Save the artifact spirit," Gu Qingshan replied. Gu Qingshan took out a long rectangular box and lightly placed it on the table. He put his hand on the box and spoke in a low voice. "One of my weapons is inside. It's about to die. I want to ask if there are any fiends that can use a unique power to repair it." The old man suddenly became interested and spoke in a low voice. "So that's how it is. Artifact spirits are rare in the first place. Even I don't have much experience in saving them. Such a quest is truly rare. It's worth it for me to act." Once he chanted an incantation. Mystical search catalog. Manifest poof. A large book appeared out of thin air and hovered in front of the two of them. This was a famous mystic-type ability that belonged solely to the appraiser. "Put your hand on the book and state your request," the old man said. Gu Qingshan then put her hand on the surface of a large book and said, "I want to say my weapon." The large book didn't move at all, nor did it make any sound. The old man regretfully spoke. "It seems no fiend in the entire Chaos Demonic Sea has the ability to save a weapon. I can settle for the next best thing and issue a slightly simpler quest," Gu Qingshan said. "What is that?" the old man asked. "Ensure that the weapon doesn't die, for now," Gu Qingshan replied. The old man nodded and gestured for her to continue. At this point, Gu Qingshan was completely tense. The Earth Sword can only live for one more day. If there's no way to delay its death, it'll be over. Gu Qingshan took a deep breath, put her hand on the thick book, and spoke in a low voice. "I want to delay the death of this weapon of mine, so that it won't break. For now." The thick book remained still. A breath's worth of time passed. The book began to shake intensely. Bam! It pulled away Gu Qingshan's hand, flipped through the pages, and finally stopped at a certain page. It was a blank page, but the old man smiled. "Seems like there are fiends who can do this," he said. "Really?" Gu Qingshan was overjoyed. "Indeed, I want to see who has this ability. Please wait a moment." The old man took out a quill and placed it on the blank page. As soon as the quill touched the page, it jumped up and began to write detailed information on it. Gu Qingshan couldn't understand what the quill was writing at all. After the quill finished writing, the old man began to read the contents of the book. Blackbone Witch King, Mystic Type Skill, Death Delay. Where's the Blackbone Witch King? Guqing Shan immediately asked. The old man made a strange expression and replied, I think you probably don't know, but he's the same as I am, a subordinate of our master, but he's not part of a business department like mine. He's part of a combat department. Without the master's permission, he can't act. What do you mean? Guqing Shan asked. You have to come with me to meet the master. If the master agrees, this deal will only be completed, the old man replied. Guqing Shan was surprised. Meet the Lord of Total Distortion? Even the Blood Demon Duke and the Holy Pure Priestess didn't want to have anything to do with this terrifying guy. The old man continued. In consideration of your generosity, I'll remind you to prepare enough compensation. Otherwise, if the master doesn't like it, you might just become another decoration on the cathedral wall. Guqing Shan muses. What kind of compensation would be considered enough? The old man replied. I can only give you a reference. Last time, an evil creature used 12 ships full of soul blood diamonds to ask the master to help him with a certain matter, but that evil creature is still hanging on the outer wall of the cathedral. Guqing Shan was speechless. Although he brought all the precious treasures of the two evil realms with him, he left in such a hurry that he didn't have time to bring a lot of things. After all, the two evil realms were too vast. Then, how should I pay enough compensation? He silently pondered. Seeing that, the old man spoke. Have you made up your mind? If you give up now, I won't report this to the master. You won't need to take any risks either. You only need to pay a small consultation fee, and you can leave, Guqing Shan replied. Please help me report this, the old man nodded. Very well. You can wait here. He opened the door and left. A few moments later, the sound of knocking came from outside again. The Xieqi ruler? Someone asked. It's me, Guqing Shan replied. The door opened. Two beautiful female beasts in formal attire stood on both sides of the door. They bowed to greet Guqing Shan and smiled. The master has received your request. Please follow me. Guqing Shan followed them out. The scene outside the door had changed. At some unknown point, the broken staircase and empty passage outside this room had disappeared. Instead, a luxurious hall had appeared. Luxurious carpets covered the ground. Fragrant flowers filled the entire hall. There were no walls on all sides, allowing her to see the entire ocean. The howling wind and torrential rain howled in anger, but they couldn't enter this place. Guqing Shan could even see two gigantic figures furiously fighting each other on the surface of the ocean. They were two demonic sea creatures. Oh, oh, oh! The demonic sea creatures' cries were filled with brutal, killing intent. Guqing Shan finally understood. So at some point, the room she was in had already reached the top of the cathedral. This was the palace that belonged to the Lord of Total Distortion. Guqing Shan followed the two beautiful female beasts all the way to the bottom of the long flight of stairs. A powerful evil creature was already waiting here. And on top of the stairs, the other evil ruler was carefully making his way up. The end of the stairs was blocked by an invisible layer of darkness, making it impossible to see what was going on inside. Please wait a moment. There are two other rulers in front of you who wish to see the master. The two female beasts smiled at Guqing Shan and retreated. Guqing Shan and the other evil ruler were waiting at the bottom of the stairs. He glanced at the evil ruler. The other party's face was pale, his forehead was covered in sweat, and he was extremely nervous. What did you come here to ask for? The evil ruler asked. Something related to weapons. What about you? Guqing Shan replied. There's something wrong with my body, the evil ruler replied. The two of them nodded to each other and said nothing else. They both realized what was going on. There was no room for lies here, so it was best to stop talking. Chapter 878. Guqing Shan and the other fiend ruler didn't have to wait for too long. Two hideous female fiends with goat horns on their heads, black feathers all over their bodies, and hideous expressions appeared. They seemed to have a higher status than the previous female demons. Their statuses were also more distinguished. The ruler in front has already greeted Master. It's your turn now. The two female fiends spoke at the same time to the fiend ruler. The fiend ruler couldn't help but ask, but the brother in front of me didn't come down yet? One of the female fiends replied. No need to wait for him. He's already dead. The fiend ruler froze and started sweating profusely. The other female fiend spoke sympathetically. Remember this well. The top floor is the place with the most power in the entire cathedral. Once you get up there, if you tell even half a lie, our master can only watch as you become the next decoration of the cathedral. He's not going to save me. I brought a lot of treasures with me to discuss business. The fiend ruler wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and said. The female fiend replied, How regretful, but master thinks that decorating the cathedral is more interesting than doing business. The other female fiend spoke. Please go. Don't make master wait too long. Otherwise, if master gets angry, then... The fiend ruler was so scared that he hurriedly went up the stairs. The two female fiends looked at his back and couldn't help but laugh. When the fiend ruler disappeared at the top of the stairs, the two female fiends turned to look at Gu Shan. Gu Shan smiled back. The two female fiends were a bit surprised. Even if the Xie Fiend King was a coward, he was still extremely handsome and attractive. One of the female fiends' eyes lit up and praised. Your grace is very rare among rulers, Gu Shan replied. Appearance isn't my forte, ah? Then what is your forte? The female fiend giggled and asked. Generous, Gu Shan replied. He casually took out 2 jewelry boxes and lightly waved his hand, allowing them to float in front of the two female fiends. The two female fiends only glanced at the boxes before accepting them. This was the most precious set of jewelry a fiend ruler had collected, a worthy gift no matter which wraith realm they were in. However, the two demonesses didn't show any excitement. They just glanced at the jewels and put them away. Gu Shan's heart skipped a beat. The two demonesses had no reaction to the jewelry, but they were a little interested in Gu Shan. A female devil curiously asked, I heard that you killed 2 demon kings? Gu Shan didn't ask how they knew. She smiled and said, To be precise, only one was killed. The other was killed by his mistress. So that's how it is. Do you like killing? The female devil asked. I don't like it. As a lord, what do you like? Cook. The female evil demon was stunned. She waited for a moment, then suddenly covered her mouth and laughed. The church did not eat you, so you were telling the truth, she said. I don't usually lie, Gu Shan said. Another truth. You really are a special lord. Another female devil tilted her head and looked at him from head to toe. Honesty makes one trust each other, and I trust that you don't like being deceived by lies either, Gu Shan replied. Then, do you think I'm beautiful? One of the demonesses suddenly asked. Their appearances couldn't be described as beautiful, but rather a bit ferocious. Gu Shan's gaze fell onto her and replied, Your body is charming, worthy of praise. That was the truth. The demoness pointed at her companion and asked, What about her? Equally charming, Gu Shan replied. The other demoness loudly asked. Then, between the two of us, who is prettier? The air seemed to have frozen at this moment. The two demonesses stopped smiling and stared straight at Gu Shan, as if waiting for him to say something nasty. After all, no one dared to lie in the church. Neither of you are as good-looking as I am, Gu Shan replied. The two women froze for a bit, then suddenly laughed. Ah ha ha! What an interesting man. In terms of appearance, that's true. How could there be such a strange existence like you among the lords? While the two women were talking, a black fog slowly rose from their bodies. The black fog took away their feathers, long goat horns, as well as their ferocious appearance, only to be replaced by beautiful faces and snow-white skin. 2 beautiful girls appeared in front of Gu Shan. They looked exactly the same, except that one of them had purple hair, while the other had green hair. The only thing that could distinguish them was their hair color. This seems to be their true appearance. Gu Shan was stunned. This change, combined with their originally alluring bodies, made them a lot more pleasing to the eye. Do you still think you're the prettiest? One of them asked. Gu Shan sighed and replied, You're prettier than I am. The two women covered their mouths and laughed. Teasing these lord-class fiends had always been their hobby. As they were about to say something else, their expressions froze. How regretful that we can't continue. It's your turn now. "Sir Ruler, the master is waiting for you," one of them said. Gu Shan looked up at the long staircase and repeated the previous ruler's words. "But the brother in front of me didn't come down. No need to wait. He has also become a decoration," one of the female fiends casually said. Gu Shan asked, "Has anyone come down?" The two female fiends exchanged glances, then looked at Gu Shan. Gu Shan smiled at them. "It's fine if you don't want to tell me. I'm going up." One of the female fiends stared closely at him, then suddenly lowered her voice. "You need to remember, don't waste time. First of all, the master will let go of those with powerful mystic-type abilities, but he also values business and the church," the other female fiend emphasized. Gu Shan nodded, expressing that she understood. "Will your master punish you for telling me this?" he asked worriedly. "It's fine. The barrier has isolated everything. The master doesn't care about things he isn't interested in. Not to mention, he wouldn't care about what we said," the female fiend replied. Gu Shan smiled, nodded to the two of them, then quickly walked up the stairs. That's right, he remembered. The bartender of the Rusty Stain Bar once said that there were two rules in this place. One was to not tell lies. The other was to be fair. Evil creatures would always remember the first rule, because evil creatures would always lie without realizing it, regardless of whether they had a reason or not. This was their natural instinct. As for fairness, that was the Lord of Total Distortion's rule of business. This was something that was easily overlooked, because for business, this was the simplest rule. More directly, the Lord of Total Distortion had to care about this when he opened his business. Two rules. He only remembered one of them. His end was obvious. Other than that, there was actually a third condition for him to walk down the stairs alive. First of all, the master will let go of those evil creatures with powerful mystic-type abilities. This half-sentence was the third condition. Finally, and most importantly, there was another sentence. When time is limited, people would usually choose the most important thing to say first. This was what the first fiend said. "You must remember, do not waste time." This was the fourth condition. Gu Shan quickly understood everything. He walked to the top of the stairs and went past the black barrier of distortion. Very quickly, he disappeared in front of the two female fiends' eyes, just like the other two rulers did. One of the two female fiends suddenly asked, "Big sis, should we go take a look?" The other female fiend replied, "Of course, this ruler is so interesting. I also want to know what kind of result he will get. Will there be any problems if we sneak up there again?" "No. Father wouldn't scold us in front of others." "Then let's go." "All right." This was the top floor of the cathedral. It was also a spacious observation deck. Gu Shan turned to the man, the Lord of Total Distortion. He was wearing a black robe, pointy black shoes, holding a long black staff in his hand, standing among a flock of crows with his back to Gu Shan as he observed the storm above the ocean. All the crows were staring at Gu Shan. "Xie Fiend King, who came from afar, I heard that you want to save your weapon." The Lord of Total Distortion asked directly. Gu Shan replied, "That's right. I'm willing to pay a sufficient price in exchange for a death suspension spell." The Lord of Total Distortion asked, "I respect everyone's interests, so what kind of price are you willing to pay for this?" Gu Shan took out two glowing strings and showed them to the Lord of Total Distortion. The Lord of Total Distortion didn't say anything. These were the strings of law of the Xie Fiend Realm and Cruel Bone Fiend Realm. A single string of law could fuse an entire Fiend Realm. Once the Fiend Realms were fused, a large amount of world origin would be released to help living beings become stronger. Even the evil creatures who couldn't improve their strength would be able to use the support of the world origin to increase their strength to varying degrees. Because of that, every Fiend Realm was a priceless treasure, and every fusion was a precious opportunity. There were currently two Fiend Realms in front of the Lord of Total Distortion. To save a single weapon, the Xie Fiend King offered up two Fiend Realms. Perhaps many rulers of other Fiend Realms would offer up their treasures in exchange for the Lord of Total Distortion's help. But how many rulers would actually offer up their Fiend Realms? The Lord of Total Distortion went silent for a while before sighing, offering up two Fiend Realm fragments at once. "Xie Fiend King, have you always been this generous?" "I simply don't like to play petty tricks. Indeed, If I don't offer you something that would be enough to move you, then I would be wasting your time. And time is priceless, Gu Qingshan replied. Time? Indeed, for the Lord of Total Distortion, time was the most important factor. For the sake of fairness, he would even punish those who came to him for wasting his time by dying in the cathedral. That was his pleasure. Hearing Gu Qingshan's words, the Lord of Total Distortion didn't say anything. All the crows around the Lord of Total Distortion on the observation deck flapped their wings and flew away from the observation deck. An indescribable, heavy, and immense shadow of darkness faded from Gu Qingshan's spirit sense. It was now that the Lord of Total Distortion spoke. A young ruler with a brain is quite rare. The reward you offered me was enough to move me. So you didn't waste my time if I still insist on using you as a wall decoration? That would be too unfair. Chapter 879. The Lord of Total Distortion observed Gu Qingshan. Gu Qingshan was also observing him. In truth, for a powerful evil creature like the Lord of Total Distortion, once he decided to take human form, he was basically no different from a normal human. But he didn't change his gray-green eyes. These eyes seemed to contain some sort of magical power. When the Lord of Total Distortion stared at Gu Qingshan even felt like she was being separated from this world. This feeling was quite similar to the true soul severing eyes. Indeed, since the war god UI had left, many title skills couldn't be used anymore. But the true soul severing eyes was an iris sword technique that Gu Qingshan created through her own practice and experimentation, which was strengthened by the war god UI to finally manifest into this thaumaturgy. This skill had already fused with his eye, so he didn't need to rely on the war god UI to activate it. That was why the true soul severing eyes technique was left behind. As for the other title skills, like the Starflame War God title skill Conquer, it was a causality skill that couldn't be understood, so it temporarily disappeared after the war god UI left. Xieqi ruler, I have a small question, the Lord of Total Distortion said. Please go ahead, Gu Qingshan replied. You should know that I only allow evil creatures with mystic-type abilities to enter this place, but from what I know about you, you don't seem to have displayed any mystic-type abilities. Is that really important? Gu Qingshan asked in return. He knew that this was the condition that the female fiend mentioned before. First, Master will let go of evil creatures with powerful mystic-type abilities. Gu Qingshan had already fulfilled the other conditions, so she needed to prove that she had mystic-type ability. The reason why she asked in return was to avoid having to answer the other party with the truth. The Lord of Total Distortion continued. Of course, only the true favorites of the Wraith Realm will be granted mystic-type abilities by the origin power of the Wraith Realm. Xieqi Fiend King, you must first prove that you belong to this type of evil creature. Xieqi Fiend King, I will give you a chance to make a fair deal. So I hope that you can first dispel this worry of mine. Can I show it right here? Gu Qingshan asked again. Only questions, no answers. This is a safe strategy. Of course, the Lord of Total Distortion replied. Gu Qingshan's gaze landed on Kindling, a center face. After killing the Xieqi Fiend King and Fiendess, I obtained a bit of soul points. This soul power was prepared to activate the soul power upgrade mode. But in order to save the Earth Sword, he couldn't care less. Gu Qingshan was about to use her soul power when she suddenly stopped. Wait, although the Lord of Total Distortion is willing to protect evil creatures with powerful mystic-type powers, I can't act too excessively. What is it? Is there a problem? The Lord of Total Distortion's tone became a bit cold. This time, he had already voiced his doubts. Gu Qingshan also noticed the other party's impatience. It was time to change tactics. Actually, I want to do something else first, Gu Qingshan explained. The Lord of Total Distortion was surprised. What else? Gu Qingshan replied. Many mystic-type skills require various prerequisites to activate. The Lord of Total Distortion nodded. What I want to do right now is to kill. The stronger the enemy I kill, the better, Gu Qingshan replied. He waited for a bit after saying that. The cathedral didn't react. Indeed, I've only said two separate things. One was the general knowledge of mystic-type skills, the other was my wish. These two things had no logical connection to each other, so they weren't lies. But from the Lord of Total Distortion's point of view, it sounded like he needed to fulfill a certain prerequisites to activate the skill. The Lord of Total Distortion clapped his hands. Very quickly, 8 evil creatures carrying a large sea creature appeared on the observatory. This was a sea creature covered in sharp spikes. Faint arcs of lightning lingered around its body. It was as tall as a 3-story building. The 8 evil creatures carrying it were already bleeding from the spikes, occasionally twitching from the power of the lightning. But they didn't make a single sound from start to finish. The Lord of Total Distortion pointed at the giant sea creature. The cathedral's decorations cannot be killed by you, and neither can my subordinates. This is a sea creature with decent strength, a rare treasure that I personally captured from the depths of the chaos demonic sea. I will be using it to entertain my guests at tonight's banquet. Can I kill it? Gu Qingshan asked. Of course, I heard that you're quite good at cooking, so I'm sure you're also quite experienced in dismembering your prey, the Lord of Total Distortion replied. Dismembering and butchering are only the basics, Gu Qingshan replied. That was the truth. Gu Qingshan's mind moved. 700 flying swords appeared from the void of space. All the swords turned into blurred images, flew towards the sea creature that gave off blue lightning once, then quickly returned behind Gu Qingshan and disappeared into the void of space again. The lightning on the sea creature's body disappeared. In just one breath's worth of time, it had been sliced perfectly and evenly from head to toe, almost like a work of art. The sea creature's head suddenly twitched, but its body remained completely still. It was now that it felt pain. It was now that it noticed that it was already dead. Your blade skill is quite good, the Lord of Total Distortion praised. Gu Qingshan didn't answer and turned her gaze towards the kindling UI. Lines of blood-red text were showing up. Frowny face, you've killed the King Lightning Spike. This is an extremely rare, demonic sea creature, powerful and ferocious. It feeds on all fresh flesh. Because it was already mortally wounded, you were able to easily kill it. All soul points have been absorbed. Your soul points increased by 500 points. 5,000 soul points, that's more than enough. Gu Qingshan walked to the edge of the observatory. He looked towards the vast ocean that was being ravaged by the storm. Chao Yin, he silently called out with his inner sight. Chao Yin was hiding inside his thoughts sea. So as soon as it heard his call, it lightly chirped as if it couldn't wait. All right, let's do it together, Gu Qingshan replied. He began to infuse the Chao Yin sword with soul points. Above the ocean, an unprecedented scene appeared. Originally, 2 large demonic sea creatures were fighting each other. But right at this moment, the tide moved away from the 2 demonic sea creatures, forming 2 large empty holes that didn't contain any water at all. The 2 demonic sea creatures that were fighting immediately fell down from the ocean. All the water in their path avoided them. Not a single drop of water was willing to touch them. Roar! The 2 demonic sea creatures both let out an earth-shattering roar. But it was useless. They who depended on the sea for survival fell straight into the sea. There was nothing they could do. Without them causing any more trouble, the storm slowly stopped. The ocean returned to its calm state. Only the 2 large holes remained on the surface of the ocean, as if reminding the evil creatures who were watching what just happened. The Lord of Total Distortion looked at the 2 gigantic holes in the ocean with an expression of interest. If that's the case, he muttered, then seemed to have thought of something. At this point, Gu Qingshan spoke up. I heard that the Chaos Demonic Sea is extremely deep. No one has ever reached its bottom. The Lord of Total Distortion replied. This place is closer to the shore. It's not that deep, Gu Qingshan asked. How deep is this place? The Lord of Total Distortion thought briefly and answered. 1 minute more, 1 minute later. Boom! An intense sound of impact resounded from deep below the ground, followed by all the beaches and barren lands around the coast starting to tremble. The ground trembled. Even the entire cathedral shook for a while before it regained its stability. The 2 demonic sea creatures fell straight down from the ocean, crashing into the rocks at the bottom of the ocean and causing a huge tremor. Gu Qingshan lightly waved her hand. The 2 holes on the ocean's surface silently disappeared. The ocean returned to its calm state. The Lord of Total Distortion nodded and spoke satisfyingly. An ability to control seawater shouldn't be able to control the chaos demonic sea like this. Not to mention that demonic sea creatures usually have mystic-type abilities such as ocean protection, child of the sea, and ocean affinity, so you shouldn't be able to do this, he continued to ask. Then, what exactly is this ability? Guqing Shan paused for a single breath's worth of time. Fortunately, I don't need to lie to answer this question. He quickly recalled the war god Yui's description of a Chaoyin sword, an ancient sword named Chaoyin. In the age of old, Shenwu world was an endless ocean. The divinities forged this sword before they left to rule over the four seas. The wielder of this sword is the king of the seas. This sword contains the artifact Spirit Thaumaturgy, all-crossing sea of bitterness. Guqing Shan smiled and replied, "This ability is called All-Crossing Sea of Bitterness." Chapter 880. Guqing Shan didn't want to talk about it any longer. Every minute I waste is the Earth Sword getting closer to death. The Lord of Total Distortion is willing to make a deal with me. I've also displayed my powerful mystic-type abilities. Now it's time to reap the rewards. Venerable Lord of Total Distortion, do you think we can make a deal now? Guqing Shan asked. The Lord of Total Distortion replied, "Don't rush the deal. I want to show you something first." He waved his hand. The entire observation deck began to sink. The brick walls flew past the watchtower at high speed. Countless rooms, evil creatures who were discussing business, as well as various treasures of various shapes and sizes, all flew away like flowing water. The light became dimmer and dimmer. In the end, the observation deck stopped above an ocean that was shimmering with deep darkness. "Look below," the Lord of Total Distortion said. Guqing Shan didn't understand what the other party was thinking, so she tried asking, "This seems to be an underground ocean that connects the bottom of the continent and the ocean." "That is not the case," the Lord of Total Distortion replied. He waved his hand again. A long, winding stone staircase appeared at the edge of the observation deck. The Lord of Total Distortion took out a burning torch from the void of space and walked down the stairs. Guqing Shan had no choice but to follow. The two of them walked down the ancient, tattered stone stairs until they reached the junction between the stairs and the ocean. The Lord of Total Distortion stopped. Guqing Shan also stopped and stood next to him. This is the lowest level of the cathedral. It is completely sealed off from the outside world. "I brought you here to show you the thing below," the Lord of Total Distortion said. Hearing that, Guqing Shan released her inner sight to scan the water. It was now that she noticed that as soon as her inner sight reached the surface of the water, she couldn't spread it out at all. The only thing she could see was a black shadow at the bottom of the ocean. What is that? This is a secret location inside the cathedral. Why did the Lord of Total Distortion want me to see this? With that question in mind, Guqing Shan carefully observed the black shadow at the bottom of the ocean. Unfortunately, there seemed to be another layer of shielding around the shadow, so she couldn't see what it was at all. Guqing Shan could only sense that it was a living creature. "I can't see clearly," Guqing Shan said honestly. The Lord of Total Distortion tossed the torch down and muttered. "Remove the taboo." The light from the fire illuminated the seawater, revealing the object hidden within. Guqing Shan looked over. It was a finger. It was a 3-story tall, incomparably thick black finger. There were sharp nails on the fingers, which looked like part of the claws of some huge creature. The giant finger was bound tightly by hundreds of tiny black chains and fixed to the bottom of the sea. The terrifying thing was that the finger was constantly struggling, trying to break free from the shackles of the black chains. Guqing Shan saw that there were already 3 to 5 black chains that were broken and scattered on the seabed. "I've done a thorough research on this cathedral and found out that the entire purpose of this cathedral was to trap this finger," the Lord of Total Distortion explained. After seeing Guqing Shan's "Even a sea of bitterness can pass" mystic-type ability, he became much more talkative, and his attitude also changed quite a bit. "I'm afraid this cathedral won't be able to trap this finger," Guqing Shan said. Although, compared to the total number of chains, breaking 3 to 5 chains was nothing. But this meant one thing. If it had the ability to break 3 to 5 chains as time passed, this giant black finger would eventually break all of the chains and escape from the bottom of the cathedral. It doesn't matter, as long as there are more powerful life forms being absorbed into the cathedral and become a part of it. The number of black chains will only increase, and this giant finger will continue to be trapped, the Lord of Total Distortion replied. Gu Qingshan was surprised. No wonder this cathedral was always eating the evil creatures. So it was absorbing the power of the evil creatures. But it didn't kill the evil creatures. Instead, it used the evil creatures as a source of power, or more accurately, as crops that could be harvested endlessly. Thanks to the power of countless evil creatures, the cathedral managed to maintain the seal on this black finger. What kind of thing is this finger? Gu Qingshan couldn't help but ask. I'm not sure. I've tried attacking it with everything I had, but I couldn't even leave a scratch on its surface, the Lord of Total Distortion replied. As he stared at the finger, his gray-green eyes displayed a look of madness and desire. Now, let us get down to business. He abruptly turned around and looked at Gu Qingshan. Xieqi Fiend King, I can have the black bone, which King used death stasis on your weapon to help you delay the weapon's collapse. Gu Qingshan was glad and replied. Then I'll trouble you. After the technique is complete, I will offer my 2 evil realms to you. No need, the Lord of Total Distortion replied. Gu Qingshan was surprised. The Lord of Total Distortion continued. 2 evil realm fragments are indeed very valuable. But what excites me more is your ability. What do you mean? Tomorrow, my expedition team will depart to explore the depths of the chaos demonic sea. What you need to know is that as long as you are willing to join my team, our deal will be complete without the need for you to give up your threads of law. You don't want to use your threads of law as part of the deal? Gu Qingshan asked. After seeing that giant finger, he was more willing to give up 2 threads of law than to explore the depths of the chaos demonic sea. Don't be ridiculous. This cathedral is already so eerie. Who knows what else is hidden beneath the depths of the chaos demonic sea? But the Lord of Total Distortion's answer disappointed Gu Qingshan. Xieqi Fiend King, your threads of law are indeed very valuable, but I have something more important to do right now, which is to explore the demonic sea. The Lord of Total Distortion continued. Your ability is very useful in the ocean. I need your ability. This way, my team will be safer, and it will be easier for us to reach our goal. Gu Qingshan's mind moved quickly. Seems like I can't refuse. Otherwise, the Lord of Total Distortion wouldn't help me. If I want to save the Earth Sword, I have to agree. If that's the case, Gu Qingshan replied, I can join your team to complete this exploration, as long as you can do what I want. Very fair. Then it's settled? The Lord of Total Distortion asked. Furthermore, as I've already shown you, I need to kill. Gu Qingshan replied. The Lord of Total Distortion smiled. There are too many demonic sea creatures in the ocean. I'll allow you to help me eliminate a few. That's fine, Gu Qingshan casually replied. Indeed, this is a very fair deal. I'll be risking my life, but the Earth Sword will be saved. The only thing I can do right now is to borrow the other party's great force to quickly gather soul points. The Lord of Total Distortion asked. If that's the case, then we have a deal. Your Excellency, please save my weapon first, because it can't hold on much longer. After that, I will fulfill my end of the bargain, Gu Qingshan replied. Very well. I'll deal with your problem. Now the Lord of Total Distortion then spoke to the void of space. Tell the Black Bone, which King to come see me. Understood, a voice replied. Not too long later, the Black Bone, which King arrived. Master, what are your orders? The Black Bone, which King asked. The Lord of Total Distortion looked at Gu Qingshan and said, Speak. Gu Qingshan then told him what she wanted. The Black Bone, which King listened carefully and nodded. Take out your weapon. Gu Qingshan carefully took out the rectangular box that contained the Earth Sword and held it with both hands. The Black Bone, which King knelt down and looked at the Lord of Total Distortion. Master, I'll be go. In peace, the Lord of Total Distortion said. The Black Bone, which King nodded and put his hand on the rectangular box. He then reached out with his other hand and took out an ancient clock from the void of space. The Black Bone, which King roared and punched the clock to pieces. As soon as the clock broke, his body slowly turned into nothingness and disappeared. The only people left on the observation tower were the Lord of Total Distortion and Gu Shan. What's going on? Gu Shan couldn't help but ask. The Lord of Total Distortion casually replied. His mystic-type skill can only be used 3 times in his life, which can make death extremely slow. The 3rd time just now was used, so he died. Gu Shan glanced at the rectangular box in her hand and carefully sensed it. She could sense a power similar to Xie Dao Ling's temporal technique from inside the rectangular box. That's great. The Earth Sword won't have to die. Since the Lord of Total Distortion sacrificed his subordinate's life to help me save the Earth Sword, I won't refuse the follow-up transaction. Chapter 881. Primordial Heaven Realm. Realm Beyond Heaven. Divine King Palace. The figure of light silently waited in the hall without moving. Luo Bingli pretended to be focused on refining the jade disc. Shanu, disguised as the god of frost and chill, sat on the Divine King's throne and carefully calculated. The previous Divine King and the god of frost and chill had already been dead for several days. According to the rules of the god race's birth, the new god would be born in a day and a half. Thinking that, Shanu felt a bit nervous. Fortunately, he could use all of young master's abilities. Don't worry. She cheered herself on. Calm down. According to young master's arrangements, I have to start preparing my lines. He was the first to express his astonishment. Then he remembered the gods of death. Suddenly, he recalled that Golden Blaze had also died. He asked the figure of light, if a divinity from the future died in the past, how would this be calculated? The figure of light definitely hadn't encountered such a situation before. Then, he would have to use that special skill. Acting. With my acting skills, I should be able to come up with a common answer with the figure of light. The god from the future died here, speeding up the birth of new gods. Acting skills. Thinking about this unique skill, Shanu couldn't help but feel a bit dejected. The young master's performance was so natural that people couldn't help but be immersed in a certain state along with his rhythm. Although he could use Gongzi's skills, it was different from damaging skills. He still had to rely on his temperament and talent. Of course, he could disguise himself as a young master, and he had the acting skills of a young master. However, she was still unable to learn the young master's expressions, lines, and mannerisms. It was true. Young master was a born liar. Thinking that, Shanu couldn't help but chuckle. That's not right either. The young master had done so many great things and dealt with countless powerful enemies. Even if he didn't have this skill, he would have thought of other ways. Yes, the young master would use everything to achieve his goals, not just acting. While he was thinking, the figure of light moved. What is it? Shanu asked. Your Majesty, I suddenly recalled a famous historical event. The figure of light spoke. What event? Shanu asked. It's nothing. It's about the chaos demonic sea. A lot of fiends and devils are going to die there in the next few days, but since Gu Shan is in the Xie fiend realm, she shouldn't be affected, the figure of light replied. Shanu sighed in relief. Then it should be fine, the other sighed. Chaotic demon sea. At this time, it was already the 2nd day. There was still a quarter of an hour before the expedition set off. Gu Shan felt a sense of unease. The spiritual senses of cultivators varied. Some people knew nothing about the future, while others could occasionally sense what would happen in the future. Xie Dao Ling once clearly saw the signs of her own death, only to be saved by Gu Shan. Gu Shan's spiritual sense was also very sharp. Now, as he stood by the sea outside the church, he felt an indescribable dread of the boundless sea. Death. Gu Shan whispered. His spiritual perception became stronger. A feeling of palpitation arose involuntarily. Vaguely, darkness seemed to appear on the surface of the sea, and some kind of illusory image appeared in front of Gu Shan. Gu Shan saw that she was wet all over and was staggering in one direction. Then suddenly, a white shadow flew out of the storage bag and danced in front of him. The premonition of his spirit sense disappeared. Gu Shan regained his senses, only to see the clear blue ocean, no clouds in sight. The sky was clear. Everything he saw just now was disrupted. All the images disappeared. TCH, what do you want now? You're interrupting me, all right? Gu Shan complained. But the white jade gourd was still carefully letting out shio sounds, asking for more soul points. Gu Shan couldn't help it. Even now, he still didn't know what the jade gourd pendants, borrowing heaven and earth, 100 lanterns, and spotless jade abilities were used for. But there was one thing he was sure of. This was a divine armament from the bygone era. Let's just take care of it first. Gu Shan had no choice but to take the jade gourd pendant and infuse it with soul points. Is that enough? Gu Shan asked. The jade gourd pendant let out a satisfied do before going back into his inventory bag. Gu Shan scanned it with his inner sight. It's back to sleep. I just used up 3,000 soul points, and now it's sleeping again? This is already the 3rd time I've asked for soul points. You should at least use it a bit. I hope it's not a bottomless pit. Gu Shan helplessly shook his head and sighed. At this point, 2 guards walked in front of Gu Shan. The ship is about to set sail. Xieqi ruler, Master has prepared a target to satisfy your kill and skill activation requirements, one of the guards reported. Where? Gu Shan asked with interest. The ship, the galley, the guard replied. Got it. Gu Shan followed the guard into the air and flew towards the ship. This was a gigantic sailboat that lazily floated on the surface of the chaos demonic sea, almost as big as a city. In fact, the rusty stain bar, the magma cathedral, as well as other structures had all been moved onto this ship. The ship was about to set sail. Before the Lord of Total Distortion gave the order, no one would know the destination of this voyage. Gu Shan didn't care that much and followed the guard to the galley. Sir Ruler, we're here. All the sea monsters here will be used as food for today. It's getting late, so please hurry up, the guard said. Gu Shan stood next to him and looked towards a galley. An inland lake. Very good. The galley is a large lake that's separated from the chaos demonic sea. This way, the freshness of the ingredients can be guaranteed. Sure enough, one of the 3 strongest evil kings, even eating like this. 2 rows of evil creatures walked in front of Gu Shan. These are the chefs of the ship, the guard introduced them. They're in charge of everyone's meals? Gu Shan asked in interest. No, they're in charge of Master's meals. It doesn't matter if the other evil creatures eat or not. They won't starve to death in just a few days, the guard replied. Gu Shan looked at him. You're not going to eat either? The guard replied. I could just go into the sea and catch a few things myself at this point. One of the chefs came up and said, Xieqi ruler, sir, cooking is our job, but since Master has ordered us to do so, we will wait for you to kill them first before preparing the food. Very well. I've troubled you, Gu Shan said apologetically. Hearing that, the chef's expressions became a bit better. Gu Shan walked to the lakeside and said, Since there's not much time, I'll get to work now. He focused his mind. 700 flying swords appeared from the void of space behind him. The flying swords scattered and surrounded the entire lake. Gu Shan sighed and muttered, I've never thought about using a sword array to make seafood. While she said that, the sword array was activated. Half an hour later, the banquet hall of the cathedral. Many powerful evil creatures were gathered here. They all stood on both sides of the Lord of Total Distortion, respectfully looking at their master. The Lord of Total Distortion. He was sitting on his throne, slowly eating today's breakfast. There were a total of 935 dishes on the long dining table. The Lord of Total Distortion casually picked out the dishes and tasted the rare and precious dishes. All the evil creatures were completely silent, not daring to make a single sound. During the master's meal, if anyone made a sound, they would be shoved into the wall of the cathedral. Of course, if any part of this evil creature's body belonged to a famous evil creature's dish, the chef would first cut that part off before they were shoved into the wall. The only one allowed to speak was the Lord of Total Distortion's secretary. Master, the time you set is almost up, the secretary reminded him. The Lord of Total Distortion paused a bit and ordered. Set sail, understood, the secretary answered, and signaled one of the evil creatures with his eyes. That evil creature turned into a gust of wind and disappeared from the hall. Ho ho ho! The sound of howling wind could be heard from outside. The giant sail in the middle of the ship was slowly being raised. The sail was becoming bigger and bigger. The ship began to move. It was like a moving city on the sea. The Lord of Total Distortion continued to enjoy his breakfast. He suddenly recalled something and glanced through the group of evil creatures. Xie ruler, the Lord of Total Distortion, called out. I'm here. Gu Qing Shan stepped out. Have you killed enough today? Yes, my ability can be activated at any time. That's good. The Lord of Total Distortion nodded and no longer paid attention to Gu Qing Shan. Gu Qing Shan stepped back with a calm expression, but he was also a bit excited. Indeed, I've already cleaned up all the seafood in the lake. The huge amount of soul points I obtained directly broke through the 100,000 mark. The second quest was quickly completed. From now on, I can use soul points to increase my cultivation. The next realm is Void Wanderer Realm. Chapter 882. The Ship. In the banquet hall, the Lord of Total Distortion was enjoying his meal. The evil creatures all stood in the hall, not daring to make a sound. Gu Qing Shan silently stood among the evil creatures, silently staring at the red UI in front of her. The second quest has been completed. Quest description: you've obtained enough soul points. Soul points upgrade mode will be activated. Special note: you've chosen the correct path. You will surely become the strongest entity through this path. The Order shares your glory. When all the text disappeared, a card appeared at the center of the UI. On the card, Gu Qing Shan wielded a sword with both hands, hovering in the air. Lapis Grade True Self card. Sword Cultivator Gu Qing Shan. Below this True Self card, there was a long gray bar that seemed to be the number of soul points. A number was displayed in the middle of the bar. A few lines of blood-red text appeared next to the bar for explanation. Frowny face. Accumulating 200,000 soul points will allow you to advance to the next level. Attention! Because your profession is a cultivator, you must face a heaven's tribulation during your advancement. The Demon King Order cannot exempt you. Attention! Your next realm is Void Wanderer Realm. As soon as you advance, you will face the Wind and Fire Tribulation. Wind and Fire? After reading through all the notifications, Gu Qing Shan put her hand on her inventory bag and checked her cultivation jade tag. Xie Guhong had compiled all of his scriptures into a large-sized jade tag and gave it to Gu Qing Shan. This jade tag contained all of the scriptures that could be cultivated to 3,000 worlds realm perfection, as well as all of Xie Guhong's sword techniques, including the enemy-killing sword technique that he obtained from the bygone era ruin. Gu Qing Shan's inner sight entered the jade tag, skipped over all of the sword techniques, and quickly found the detailed explanation for advancing to Void Wanderer Realm. Indeed, during this advancement process, the lightning of tribulation had already disappeared. What replaced it was the fire tribulation. Among the four saint pillars of earth, water, fire, and wind, earth represented life, water represented longevity, fire represented destruction, and wind represented passing away. The fire tribulation was a tribulation of destruction that all living beings had to face. However, many living beings didn't even have to wait for the fire tribulation before they entered the wind state, passing away. This time, Gu Qing Shan had to face the wind and fire tribulation. The next time she broke through to Void Revolution Realm, she would have to face the fire tribulation of water and fire. When she broke through to 3,000 Worlds Realm, she would have to face the tribulations of earth. This is what everyone in the cultivation world calls sailing against the current. The four tribulations of wind, fire, water, and earth. A cultivator has to go through all of them in reverse before they can finally reach Paragon Realm. Even within the 900 million world layers, a Paragon Realm cultivator was already a top-tier existence. Cultivators would be at Paragon Realm cultivators of Saint Realm. Even, he temporarily stopped thinking and looked at the center of the kindling UI, asking, this progress bar is the amount of soul points I need to advance, but how do I make the order evolve? You wanted to do? I do. I heard that the higher the rank of the order, the more powerful it would be, Gu Qing Shan replied. Fire stayed silent for a bit before answering. Since you desire more power so much, I will change my strategy and make the following decision. Once you have completed your first rank advancement, Fire will issue an evolution quest. Guqin Sha nodded and didn't ask anything else. I need 200,000 soul points to break through to Void Wanderer Realm. I should start planning for this now. At this point, the Lord of Total Distortion suddenly put down his utensils. At the same time, the howling wind outside the banquet hall disappeared. The ship came to a slow stop. What happened? Guqin Shan released her inner sight to scan through the entire ship, then several hundred miles around her. The inner sight of a Void Beholder Realm cultivator could already scan a relatively large area. Several dozen nautical miles in front of the ship, a gigantic iceberg was rising from the water. This iceberg was almost the same size as the ship. Underneath the iceberg, a gigantic head popped out of the water, glaring at the Lord of Total Distortion's ship. An ancient demonic sea creature. Who would have thought a demonic sea creature would stop the Lord of Total Distortion's ship right at the start of the expedition? Another one that wants to eat evil creatures, 20 million years old? No. Someone tell me, how many tens of thousands of years has it lived for? The Lord of Total Distortion asked in displeasure. At this point, one of the evil creatures spoke up. Master, I've seen it clearly. The evil creatures all turned to the evil creature who spoke. This was a humanoid evil creature without eyes. Apparently, he used some sort of unique ability to check the demonic sea creature's age. However, because he wasn't strong enough, his humanoid form was a bit lacking as his lower body still had 4 hooves. The evil creature reported. This demonic sea creature has lived for 37,679,861 years. Hearing that, the Lord of Total Distortion's expression loosened up a bit. A guy that lived for over 30 million years. Not only did he not go to sleep in the ocean abyss, he even dared to stop my ship. He's courting death. He glanced at the evil creatures. The devils immediately understood. They bowed to the Lord of Total Distortion and left the banquet hall. As soon as they left the banquet hall, the evil creatures leapt to the sky and flew towards the iceberg in front of the ship. The Lord of Total Distortion continued to enjoy his breakfast. A few moments later, chaotic fluctuations of power could be felt from the ocean. The battle had begun. The evil creatures in the banquet hall were all ready to act. They also wanted to participate in the battle. To be blunt, they were starving, yet they could only stand here and watch their master enjoy hundreds of rare dishes by himself. This was a very torturous thing to do. Some evil creatures appeared anxious. Others silently sensed the fluctuations in the air and observed the situation of the battle. A few evil creatures were staring at the void of space, their expressions constantly changing. It was as if they could see through all obstacles and directly observe the situation of the battle several thousand meters away. Guqin Shan only needed a bit of observation to understand one thing. Evil creatures didn't have inner sight. They weren't like cultivators who purposefully trained their inner sight from the very beginning of their cultivation. Most of them relied on their instincts and inheritances to evolve. Only a few lucky ones would be able to obtain unique abilities during this process. As this battle was taking place over half a city and several dozen nautical miles away, the majority of evil creatures couldn't even see how the battle was progressing at all. Guqin Shan didn't care about these evil creatures. He released his inner sight again and scanned the vast ship towards the surface of the ocean. Through his inner sight, he could clearly see everything that was happening above and below the surface of the ocean. Sure enough, since these evil creatures were able to become the subordinates of the Lord of Total Distortion and stand in the banquet hall, none of them were weak. They were all pure offensive evil creatures, unleashing all sorts of dazzling attacks as soon as they appeared. Very quickly, quite a bit of the iceberg was destroyed. The demonic sea creature that had lived for over 30 million years was also beaten to a pulp by the evil creatures, dyeing a large part of the ocean red. As he watched, Guqin Shan silently felt surprised. That's strange. An old monster that had lived for so long wouldn't come here to die. He gathered his inner sight again and scanned through the evil creatures, heading deeper into the ocean. He began to carefully observe this giant, demonic sea creature that was carrying the iceberg. But under the ocean, Gu Qingshan was shocked to find that the demonic sea creature's body was so long that she couldn't see the end of it. Compared to it, that giant iceberg was nothing more than a speck of snow on top of its head. According to its body, it looked like a gigantic sea serpent, a sea snake that had lived for over 30 million years. What a terrifying body. No wonder the Lord of Total Distortion wanted to check its lifespan first and only relaxed after knowing the result. The Lord of Total Distortion decided the number and strength of the evil creatures he sent to battle based on this demonic sea creature's lifespan. Normally, the Lord of Total Distortion wouldn't make a mistake. And from the state of the battle, the result was exactly as the Lord of Total Distortion expected. However, Gu Qingshan looked at the demonic sea creature. Its eyes were filled with forbearance and viciousness. Such an ancient creature shouldn't be too stupid. Taking a step back, if it really was stupid, there could only be one reason why it was able to live for over 30 million years. It was too strong. At this point, the Lord of Total Distortion also stopped eating and mused. Still not running even after being beaten to this state? That can't be suicidal. It must be planning something, or it must be very powerful. How interesting, a monster that has only lived for 30 million years dares to plot against my ship. His expression became a bit more serious. Gu Qingshan silently nodded. Sure enough, the Lord of Total Distortion also noticed the demonic sea creature's abnormality. Dark Devil, Judge, Silent Ruler, and the Xieqi Ruler, you are all great evil creatures with unique abilities. I need you to act, the Lord of Total Distortion ordered. Following his order, a man covered in gray flames, a man carrying a long guillotine on his back, and a woman without a mouth on her face stepped forward. The two men knelt on the ground. Yes, Master, the woman turned to the Lord of Total Distortion and lightly curtsied. The three of them looked a bit eerie, but their human forms were all perfect, except for the woman without a mouth. But that seemed to be a secret of hers. As the Xieqi Fiend King, Gu Qingshan also stepped forward and lightly curtsied to the Lord of Total Distortion. Four powerful evil creatures with unique abilities had acted at the same time. This proved how much importance the Lord of Total Distortion placed on this matter. The three of you, go and provide support. No matter what tricks that demonic sea creature has up its sleeves, kill it without any hesitation, the Lord of Total Distortion ordered. Understood. Gu Qingshan and the other three evil creatures left the banquet hall. At this point, the other evil creatures no longer showed any eagerness to fight. Chapter 883. Gu Qingshan rode the wind and flew upwards. The iceberg stood at the end of the city. Compared to his flying speed, the other powerful evil creature was much faster. The dark wraith, whose body was covered in gray flames, flashed a few times in the air, passed by Gu Qingshan, and almost reached the top of the iceberg. Get out of my way, he roared. The evil creatures that were attacking quickly stopped and retreated. They could also tell that even though their attacks caused the giant sea snake to bleed, it didn't react at all, not even moving an inch. It was as if such an attack was nothing to it. As the evil creatures stopped attacking, the wounds on the giant sea snake's body quickly healed. Dark Wraith looked down at the 30-million-year-old giant sea snake. Endless gray flames erupted from his body and slowly engulfed him. He leapt into the air, held a mass of gray flames in his hand, and abruptly threw it down. The gray flames shot towards the sea snake like a comet. Sensing the danger contained within this mass of flames, the sea snake abruptly stood up, opened its jaws, and bit down at the gray flames. Seeing this shocking scene, the other evil creatures hurriedly retreated. No one wanted to be caught in the crossfire of this battle. The guillotine-wielding arbiter, the silent ruler, as well as Gu Qingshan, all stopped in midair, watching this decisive attack. The arbiter sighed. Using life-devouring gray flames. Right from the start, it seems everything is over. Noticing that the silent ruler and Xieqi ruler were looking at him, he explained. Dark Wraith's most proficient ability is life-devouring gray flames. This flame will absorb the vitality of any living being to sustain itself. Only when the target is dead and can no longer provide any vitality would the gray flame burn out. Gu Qingshan was surprised. This was a very troublesome ability, but with this ability, it wouldn't be too hard to defeat enemies stronger than herself. This was how mystic-type abilities worked. Through the accidental fusion of endless world origin and soul force, they could create unimaginable and miraculous powers. For combat, mystic-type abilities didn't need to be reasoned with. At this point, the gray flames had already collided with the giant sea snake. Gray flames erupted from the giant sea snake's body. Surging flames soared into the sky. The gigantic sea snake let out an earth-shattering scream. It twisted and struggled in the flames, as if it was suffering from great pain. High up in the sky, Ghoul gradually revealed a smile. Surprisingly, the other party did not dodge. How stupid. As long as it was touched by the life-devouring fire, the monster would have no choice but to burn its life. Seeing that the giant sea serpent continued to struggle and was on its last breath, Ghoul started to descend. It was said that demonic sea beasts that had lived for tens of millions of years would always have some treasures on them. But no one knew what this demonic sea beast had. He was the one who killed it. No one could take it from him. He wanted to give the treasure to his master and receive his praise. Very well, then let's do this. That was the Ghoul's last thought. Amidst the gasps of shock, an even darker gray flame suddenly rose from the gigantic sea serpent's body and struck the Ghoul. In less than a breath's time, the Ghoul was burned to ashes. At the same time, the giant sea serpent suddenly perked up and completely recovered. The gray flames on its body had completely disappeared. All the wounds were gone. It seemed to have recovered to its peak state. The demons were all dumbfounded. What exactly is going on here? The giant sea serpent's eyes displayed a hint of cruelty and mockery. It sent out a buzzing telepathic message in all directions. Life-devouring fire? Fool, I still have over 100 million years of life left. It was now that the evil creatures realized what was going on. Indeed, it was an ancient demonic sea beast. Its lifespan was incredibly long. Who knows how many years it would take for the life-devouring fire to burn it to death. But why did the life-devouring fire on this giant sea serpent's body disappear? Why was Ghoul killed by his own skill? The evil creatures were all confused. Arbiter angrily shouted, "Damn it! I don't believe it. How could Ghoul be killed by his own flames?" He took off the guillotine on his back. Gu Qingshan saw that and advised him, "Wait, it seems to have a unique reflective skill. Don't attack it recklessly." Arbiter coldly scoffed. "I can also tell its skin might be able to reflect all attacks, but that's useless against me." He threw the guillotine forward. "Sacrifice. 9 lives, soul steal," Arbiter shouted. Immediately, the other 9 evil creatures in the sky howled in pain. They exploded into clusters of bloody light that returned to the guillotine. "These are all my subordinate evil creatures. I will now sacrifice them to avenge Ghoul. My 2 rulers, please do not interfere," Arbiter said. Saying so, ignoring the silent ruler and Xie Fiend Lord's reactions, he had already activated his mystic-type skill. As soon as the guillotine absorbed the 9 clusters of bloody light, it turned into a bloody skull that quickly flew towards the giant sea serpent. "A soul technique," Gu Qingshan muttered. He could already feel the impact of this mystic-type skill on his soul. Seeing this bloody skull, the giant sea serpent's eyes became even more mocking. It opened its mouth, inhaled, then exhaled. The blood-red skull disappeared. Following that, the skull reappeared. But this time, the skull appeared in front of Arbiter. It quickly entered Arbiter's body. A moment of silence. A faint figure came out from Arbiter's body and flew up to the sky. It was Arbiter's soul. The bloody skull followed, caught up to Arbiter's soul, and hugged him tightly. "No!" Arbiter's soul roared in despair. The bloody skull turned into a guillotine and slashed at the sky. Arbiter's soul was cleaved in half and disappeared. His body fell into the sea, and with only a small splash, he could no longer be seen. All the evil creatures in the sky were killed by the giant sea serpent. Only the silent ruler and Xie fiend lord managed to survive because they didn't act. It can even reflect soul techniques. Do you have any ideas? Gu Qingshan asked in a low voice. The silent ruler also understood the danger of the situation and sent a telepathic message to Gu Qingshan. I have many mystic-type techniques, but I don't dare to attack it again. Can you restrain it? Gu Qingshan asked. Behind him, 700 flying swords appeared from the void of space. Sensing the cold sword chi coming from Gu Qingshan's body, the silent ruler's eyes lit up. That's right, if this giant sea serpent can reflect all mystic-type techniques, I might as well just go up and fight. I know a bit about control-type techniques, the silent ruler replied. I'll go. You interfere and control it from behind, Gu Qingshan said. Got it, the silent ruler agreed without hesitation. Gu Qingshan activated her hand seal. All the flying swords flew through the void of space and slashed at the giant sea serpent with sharp sword phantoms. At this point, the giant sea serpent was looking at the two of them. When it saw the sky full of flying swords, its eyes revealed a slightly surprised expression. This was the simplest and most basic physical attack. Who would have thought that there would be evil creatures using such a simple method to attack in this ocean filled with mysticism? The giant sea serpent charged forward. In a split second, the flying swords clashed with the giant sea serpent. As soon as the flying swords struck the giant sea serpent, they immediately vanished. These flying swords abruptly appeared in front of Gu Qingshan and attacked him. Gu Qingshan stood still. All the flying swords hurriedly stopped and angrily vibrated in the air. Flying swords were sentient, so they would never attack their master. Doubled in power, able to reflect even physical attacks. Seems like this is a type of mystic-type ability that can reflect twice as much damage. Gu Qingshan felt a bit emotional. He understood now. This mystic-type ability is too powerful. No wonder he was able to live for 30 million years without a scratch. The silent ruler was chanting a spell, so she hesitated a bit when she saw this. It's fine, continue. I'll think of something else, Gu Qingshan told her. He flew towards the giant sea serpent. The giant sea serpent looked at him in surprise. You still dare to come after that? It rolled its eyes and retreated a little. It bent its body and pretended to be ready to attack. Gu Qingshan's heart sank. Not only is this giant sea serpent powerful, it's also smart and cautious. He held the Chao Yin sword tightly. Right when he was about to attack, his inventory bag suddenly moved. The jade gourd pendant flew out again. It was circling around Gu Qingshan while letting out a shio sound. Gu Qingshan's fighting spirit was deflated. Thanks to the soul ability he obtained in Shenwu World, he was able to communicate with weapon spirits. Not only with the Chao Yin sword, but also with the jade gourd pendant. This jade pendant had just woken up, and now it's asking me for soul points. Don't mess around. I'm fighting right here. Gu Qingshan helplessly sent his voice. The jade gourd pendant turned around and saw the giant sea serpent. Shio, the jade gourd pendant spoke again. Attack? You want me to use my strongest attack? Gu Qingshan asked in surprise. Shio, the jade gourd pendant replied. Gu Qingshan hesitantly asked, Can I? He didn't have time to talk to the jade gourd pendant. Seeing him stop, the giant sea serpent took the initiative. The giant sea serpent leapt forward. Gu Qingshan didn't have time to think. He summoned all his flying swords and infused them with a huge amount of spirit energy. 700 strikes, secret art, great torrent. All the flying swords simultaneously unleashed torrent, this powerful secret art, instantly filling the entire sky with countless sword phantoms. This was a flood of sword phantoms from the prehistoric era. The giant sea serpent dove into the flood, went against the sword phantoms, and charged towards Gu Qingshan. Suddenly, it noticed that something wasn't right. Intense pain, like never before, appeared all over its body. The giant sea serpent then understood. This meant that its mystic-type technique that had always worked before had lost its effect. No, it didn't lose its effect. It was nullified by a mystic-type technique of the same level in nature. At this point, there was nothing that could help it stop such a powerful flood of swords. The giant sea serpent wanted to turn around, but it couldn't move at all. Seeing that Gu Shan was going all out, the silent ruler immediately used her strongest restraining technique. It was a perfect match. The sky and earth were filled with sword phantoms, but the giant sea serpent couldn't escape. The howling sword phantoms struck its body. Its gigantic body was blown away like a piece of cotton in the wind, only to be sliced into pieces until it was completely gone. The flood of swords in the sky slowly faded away. Not even a single bone remained of the giant sea serpent. Gu Shan was stunned in midair. He didn't feel any joy from killing it, because right now, the jade gourd pendant was dancing around him as if asking for praise, constantly letting out a shio sound to tell him how much effort it had put in. Indeed, it was a divine armament from the bygone era. When it voluntarily explained itself, Gu Shan finally learned one of its abilities. A notification also appeared on the kindling UI. Jade Pendant. Adorable has personally told you its secret. You've learned one of its thaumaturgies, 100 Lanterns, temporarily steals an ability from an enemy. After you use this ability once, in order to cover up this matter, the ability will immediately disappear from your body. Description: a single lantern illuminates 100 lanterns. Gu Shan blankly read these notifications and couldn't help but say, "What 100 lanterns? Isn't this just stealing someone else's ability?" The jade gourd pendant was displeased as soon as it heard that. It kept letting out a shio sound, as if trying to justify something. After listening for a while, Gu Shan finally understood. How can a cultivator's business be called stealing? This was what the jade gourd pendant was trying to say. At the same time, following its voice, the text on the kindling UI refreshed. This had never happened before. New lines of blood red text appeared. 100 lanterns. Temporarily steal an ability from an enemy. After using this ability once, the ability will disappear from your body. Description: a single lantern illuminates 100 lanterns. Chapter 884. Gu Shan looked at the lines of text on the kindling UI and went silent. In his entire life, he had never seen such a righteous explanation, but it did help him win against the demonic sea creatures. Just now, the demonic sea creatures were already preparing to attack. The situation was extremely dire, but the only evil creatures left in the air were him and the Silent Ruler. The Silent Ruler was clearly not the type to fight in close combat, so Gu Shan had to go up first. The giant sea snake's ability was to reflect attacks. Fortunately, the Chao-In sword didn't need to face this ability. The Chao-In sword could control the sea. In other words, the giant sea snake would continue to fight against the sea. No matter how it reflected attacks, it couldn't harm Gu Shan at all. Gu Shan originally planned to use this to slowly circle around the giant sea snake and look for its weakness. Who knew a treasure that could steal skills would suddenly pop up? A line of blood-red text appeared on the kindling. UI frowny face, killed ancient creature, larva magic dragon. You've perfectly absorbed the creature's soul. 180,000 soul points. 180,000 soul points. Gu Shan hurriedly looked at the card at the center of the UI, below the lapis card. Sword Cultivator Gu Shan. The long soul points progress bar had already been filled up for the most part. Only a little bit left to advance. Only 20,000 soul points left. Gu Shan felt assured. He looked at the jade gourd pendant and said, "Come here." The jade gourd pendant flew in front of him. Gu Shan held the jade pendant and asked, "How much soul points do you want this time?" Shio. Got it. Gu Shan directly poured 10,000 soul points into the jade pendant. The jade pendant was so happy that it danced around Gu Shan again and again. Gu Shan smiled. "Well done, you've saved me a lot of trouble." He looked towards the ship and felt a bit worried. The Lord of Total Distortion saw the entire battle just now. Even a few high-level evil creatures saw it. What would they think of this? If they knew how powerful the jade gourd pendant was, would they have other thoughts? If he were to put himself in her shoes, even if he heard that there was a treasure that could borrow other people's abilities, he would also be tempted. All right, it seems I'll have to come up with an excuse to cover up the battle just now, muttered Gu Shan. At this moment, the jade gourd pendant heard his words and immediately stopped in the air. It kept making shoo 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 sounds at Gu Shan, as if it was explaining something to her. Gu Shan's eyes widened when she heard that. What? Is there such a thing? While he was still in shock, lines of blood-red words appeared on the Tinder interface. Jade pendant. Adorable has personally told you its secret. You've learned one of its thaumaturgies. Spotless jade. Only you know of this jade's actions. Description. Flawless jade. Hidden in the void. It can only be revealed in front of the Venerable One and cannot be seen by any living being. Gu Shan glanced at the kindling interface and confirmed that her understanding was correct. In other words, no matter what the jade gourd pendant does, no one else knows? While Gu Shan was thinking, the silent ruler had already flown over. She still appeared to be in disbelief. How unexpected. It's only afraid of the most basic of physical attacks. Hearing that, Gu Shan looked at the jade gourd pendant hovering in front of her and said nothing. She really doesn't know what the jade gourd pendant did just now? Noticing Gu Shan's doubtful gaze, the jade gourd pendant scoffed shoo in disdain. It flew straight towards the silent ruler. Under Gu Shan's gaze, the jade gourd pendant fluttered in front of the silent ruler's eyes. But the silent ruler didn't seem to notice this at all. She continued to sigh. In this sea of mystical power, we've all gotten used to using mystic-type abilities in battle and rarely use the most basic of cold weapons to attack. Otherwise, those powerful evil creatures just now wouldn't have died like that. Seeing her expression, Gu Shan finally confirmed that the jade gourd pendant really could hide itself from other entities. What a good thaumaturgy. All right, you're making me dizzy. Come back. He sent his voice to the jade gourd pendant. Having been praised, the jade gourd pendant proudly flew back and landed on top of Gu Shan's head. It proudly hovered above Gu Shan's head. Although no one could see this jade gourd pendant, Gu Shan still felt a bit strange for having a gourd-shaped item on top of her head. All right, you've taken the soul points and done your job. Go rest now. I'll find you if there's anything else. Also, the jade gourd pendant is meant to be worn. Don't let it stay on top of my head again. He sent his voice. The jade gourd pendant unwillingly flew down and went into Gu Shan's inventory bag. Inside the inventory bag, it found an empty spot to roll around a few times, then stopped moving. It really did fall asleep just like that. Although it seemed like a long time, it had only been the blink of an eye. Gu Shan looked at the silent ruler. That's right. He followed up the silent ruler's words and continued. It's fortunate that you helped me trap it. Otherwise, it would have escaped. The silent ruler smiled. At this point, some light could be seen flickering on the surface of the sea. I heard that these ancient, demonic sea creatures that have lived for over 10 million years all have a few treasures. Let's go take a look at what they are, the silent ruler said. All right. The two of them flew down, lightly landed on the surface of the sea, and looked at the flickering light. They were sharp fingernails about half an arm's length, silently floating on the surface of the sea, reflecting the light around them. The silent ruler exclaimed in surprise. She waved her hand to summon the fingernails in front of herself. So they were the fingernails of the magic dragon. No wonder this monster had such powerful mystic-type powers. It most likely carried the magic dragon's bloodline. Gu Shan looked at the razor-sharp fingernails. My swordsmanship managed to kill the entire monster, but I couldn't even leave a scratch on these fingernails. I can't imagine just how powerful this sea monster would become if it continued to evolve. The Lord of Total Distortion carefully observed the pieces of Magic Dragon's fingernails on the table. Fortunately, they were only fingernails. He spoke with the tone of an experienced person. From the battle just now, it was still in its infancy, so its skills haven't fully evolved yet. Otherwise, your swordsmanship wouldn't have been able to kill it, and both of you would have died, especially you, Xiechi ruler. I had thought that you would use your ability to control the sea to avoid its reflection and prepare for the next battle. Is that possible? Wouldn't controlling the sea be reflected? Another powerful evil creature joined the discussion. Its entire body was covered in twisted runes, causing the air around it to turn into twisted patterns. From the looks of it, it was a powerful evil creature with a high status. The Lord of Total Distortion patiently answered its question. Because the ability to control the sea is divided into two parts. The first part is to control the sea. The second part is to control the sea to attack the monster. So even if that sea monster were to reflect its attack, it would only reflect back to the sea and not affect the Siechi ruler. In fact, this mystic-type ability can only track the target that attacked it and not reflect it a second time. This is the correct way. To fight against this ability, hearing that, Guqing Shan silently sighed. The Lord of Total Distortion truly lived up to his reputation. He was right. If the jade, pin and adorable, didn't help him, he would have already done that. Regardless, it's dead. I don't want to run into any other magic dragon sea monsters ever again, Guqing Shan said. The Lord of Total Distortion laughed. The other evil creatures also laughed. No evil creature wanted to run into the magic dragon. The magic dragon was an entity that truly stood at the top of the food chain in the Wraith realm, always slumbering in a mysterious place, only waking up once every few 100,000 years, just to feed. The evil creatures had never been able to win against the magic dragon. Back when the divinities and the desolate race destroyed the primordial Wraith realm, they also purposely avoided the places where the magic dragon slumbered. However, hearing the Lord of Total Distortion's laughter, Guqing Shan also felt relieved. Although no one noticed the existence of the Jade Gourd pendant, the battle just now was more or less a bit off. The Lord of Total Distortion naturally noticed it, but he didn't ask any further. Guqing Shan wasn't one of his subjects. She was the owner of 2 Wraith realms, a great fiend ruler. Which ruler didn't have some sort of trump card? Of course, the original Siechi Fiend King was one thing. That was why the Lord of Total Distortion didn't want to get to the bottom of it. After all, that wasn't the demeanor a Fiend King should have. The Lord of Total Distortion took out 2 of the nails and gave them to Guqing Shan and the Silent Ruler. This is what you deserve. While saying so, he put the other nails of the magic dragon away. Both Guqing Shan and the Silent Ruler expressed their gratitude. The nails of the magic dragon. This was a true treasure that contained unimaginable power. Anyone who possessed it would be hunted down by countless evil creatures, unless they were strong enough to make all the evil creatures stop in their tracks. The Lord of Total Distortion naturally wasn't afraid. The Siechi ruler and the Silent Ruler were both powerful evil creatures, and because they were the ones who killed that sea monster, they were qualified to receive one of the nails. The Lord of Total Distortion threw out another nail of the magic dragon. Chapter 885. The Lord of Total Distortion. As one of the 3 most powerful evil kings, he had been living in the chaos demonic sea for countless years. His knowledge of this vast ocean far surpassed that of all evil creatures. Under his order, a piece of magic dragon's fingernail was hung high up on the sail of the ship. Although this piece of fingernail only came from an infant magic dragon, it was still a powerful deterrent. Within the chaos demonic sea, no demonic sea creature would actively try to provoke the magic dragon's bloodline, because any creature that carried the magic dragon's bloodline would definitely have unimaginably powerful abilities. There was also a more important reason. All monsters were afraid that they would be invaded by the magic dragon's bloodline and turn into a creature similar to the magic dragon. Indeed, the magic dragon's bloodline was both pervasive and invasive. Once a creature's body was invaded by the magic dragon's bloodline, their very essence would change. They would become an infant magic dragon, gain even more mystical power, and become the ruler of the ocean. But this wasn't worth celebrating. The magic dragon would awaken every few 100,000 years. Whenever it did, the living beings that were invaded by the magic dragon's bloodline would be guided by mystical power and gather together. Then the mystic dragon would devour all the larvae and absorb the mature essence of power from them. If it had eaten enough, it would go back to sleep. If it didn't have enough, the Wraith Realm would become its picnic ground. For the demonic sea creatures, becoming part of the magic dragon's bloodline was the same as accepting their own death. Unless they could use the magic dragon's bloodline to rapidly evolve within the next few 100,000 years and become a powerful entity that surpassed the magic dragon. That way, they would be able to defeat the awakened magic dragon and absorb all of the magic dragon's power. The winner would become the new magic dragon. But such a thing had almost never happened before. That was why the ancient demonic sea creatures of the Chaos Demonic Sea were even less willing to fight the magic dragon to the death just for a bit of power. Their lifespans could easily reach tens of millions of years. Now, when the huge ship set sail again, the aura of the magic dragon spread out from the sails. In the deep sea, many powerful demonic sea creatures took the initiative to stay away from the ship. The Lord of Total Distortion lost a few of his subordinates at the very beginning, but he managed to obtain Magic Dragon's fingernails, which allowed him to enjoy an exceptionally smooth journey. He was quite pleased with that. This was good news for Guqing Shan. There was no need for him to go to war, and the voyage on the sea became long and safe, which made it convenient for him to do many things. For example, go into the kitchen lake to dissect seafood. Unknowingly, he had earned 30,000 soul points. 200,000 soul points were gathered. Then 210,000, 280,000, 370,000, 400,000. Although the jade gourd pendant would pop up from time to time and ask for some soul power, Guqing Shan's soul power was increasing steadily. 6 days later, the ship continued to sail through the chaos demonic sea. But from now on, the laziness that had spread throughout the ship had completely disappeared. The Lord of Total Distortion donned his armor, personally showed himself, and began to issue his orders one by one. As the ship moved forward, his expression became more and more serious. A few evil creatures who couldn't adjust their state of mind in time were directly sent to the walls of the church. Even a Lord-class great evil creature was directly executed in front of everyone. The Demon King's attitude affected all the evil creatures. No one knew what the Demon King was worried about, but they all understood one thing. The true storm was about to arrive. After Guqing Shan finished dissecting the last sea creature, she stood up. "Thank you for your hard work, Sir Ruler," one of the evil creature's chefs said. "Ah, it's fine. I need to do this in order to use my abilities. No need to thank me," Guqing Shan smiled and replied. Another evil creature kindly reminded her, "After you leave this place, make sure to wear your armor. Otherwise, it would be bad if you were discovered at Chem." I understand chefs naturally had a lot to talk about. After spending a few days together, everyone's impression of Guqing Shan, a powerful ruler who was able to kill the magic dragon's larva, was getting better and better, so they naturally had these words of concern. Guqing Shan said goodbye to these fellow culinary enthusiasts and left the kitchen. He took out the lapis card for black smog armor and lightly shook it. A full suit of armor that gave off a faint black smog appeared on his body, covering him from head to toe. I really don't know what the Lord of Total Distortion is worried about, but it's best to be careful. While thinking that, Guqing Shan headed towards the banquet hall. The Demon King's dinner time was about to begin. The team of several dozen chefs quickly served the dishes, so he needed to get there and wait for the Lord of Total Distortion to arrive. A few moments later, the banquet hall. Many evil creatures had already arrived. Those who could enter the banquet hall were the strongest evil creatures on the ship. Seeing Guqing Shan walking in his black armor, many evil creatures greeted him. The silent ruler also nodded to him. It was quite easy for evil creatures to get along with one another. As long as you didn't want to eat the other party, there was no problem. A few moments later, the Lord of Total Distortion appeared. The moment he appeared, the entire long dining table was immediately filled with steaming hot food. But the Lord of Total Distortion didn't start eating right away. "Does anyone know where we are heading?" he asked the evil creatures. The evil creatures were all excited. It seemed like it was finally time to reveal the truth. The secretary spoke first. Master, with our current speed, we will reach the wood bristles land in 3 days, the wood bristles land. This was the furthest distance that the evil creatures had ever traveled in the chaos demonic sea in recorded history. There is a gigantic demonic tree that took root at the bottom of the ocean over 1,000,000 meters deep, growing all the way up until it formed a lush island on the ocean surface. Its root was right next to the sea abyss. Going further than that, the water would be even deeper, almost impossible to reach. No evil creature could go past this place and continue to explore. The deeper parts of the ocean were completely unexplored by the evil creatures, because demonic sea creatures had always loved to eat evil creatures, and those parts of the ocean that couldn't be reached were called the sea abyss, a paradise that only belonged to ancient demonic sea creatures that were over 100 million years old. For demonic sea creatures that were over 100 million years old, they were powerful, knew a lot of secrets, and were highly intelligent, so they knew how to avoid the corrosion of the magic dragon's blood. In the boundless sea abyss, even if the ship was fully tied up with magic dragon's fingernails, they still wouldn't be able to do anything. Against such ancient existences, the only thing the evil creatures could do was to retreat. Indeed, we will reach the wood bristles land in 3 days, where we will rest and reorganize. Because of that, from today onwards, we will be approaching the dangerous waters. You are the strongest evil creatures on this ship. I order all of you to stay alert and form teams according to the list. Patrol the area within 300 miles around the ship. If you encounter any danger, kill them at once. The Lord of Total Distortion ordered. Hearing that, the evil creatures were a bit discouraged. The evil king still didn't say what he wanted. He only said kill. But kill what? Demonic sea creatures? Seems like he wouldn't tell them the truth until the very last moment. The list of teams was quickly announced. The Lord of Total Distortion divided the powerful evil creatures into 10 teams. All the evil creatures began to move. The first team began to patrol. The other teams returned to their rooms to rest up and wait for their turn. Guqing Shan was placed in the second-to-last team. It would be the second-to-last team's turn to patrol tomorrow morning. He returned to his room and silently waited. Time slowly passed. Guqing Shan put down the swordsmanship jade tag in his hand and sighed. I can now control 700 flying swords and use secret arts to attack at the same time. But it's very difficult to gather all of that power into a single sword attack. As for cultivation, his gaze fell onto the kindling. The soul points slot only had 200,000 soul points, but it's now overflowing to 510,000. Unfortunately, if I don't complete my current cultivation advancement quest, I won't be able to upgrade the Demon King order, even if I have enough soul points. The wind and fire double tribulation. This was the first time Guqing Shan faced a fire tribulation. He was extremely cautious, prepared himself, and pushed his condition to its peak. But there was something extremely awkward right now. He couldn't start to evolve, because this was the chaos demonic sea. Once there was even the slightest sign of trouble, the devils would immediately notice. This was a breakthrough for a human cultivator. A human cultivator dared to come to the primordial wraith realm, enter the territory of an evil king, and face the heavens tribulation in front of this evil king. What kind of spirit is this? Chapter 886. Guqing Shan sighed helplessly. A human cultivator coming to the wraith realm to face their tribulation is an obvious provocation. If I dare to face my tribulation now, my identity will be exposed. For the sake of his dignity, the Lord of Total Distortion would do everything in his power to tear me apart. All the evil creatures will come to attack me. If that happens, even if I manage to escape from the Lord of Total Distortion, I won't be able to stay in the Wraith Realm. What should I do to avoid the evil creatures and begin my breakthrough? Guqing Shan silently thought. At a certain point, his inventory bag twitched a bit. The jade gourd pendant appeared again. It flew in front of Guqing Shan and chirped, tried to attract Guqing Shan's attention. Xiao, how much? Xiao. Here you go. Guqing Shan was now rich enough to throw out 20,000 soul points. Being nourished by the soul points, the jade gourd pendant became spirited again. It happily circled around the figure 8 in front of Gu Shan, chirping to please her. Shio, 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 shio. You're a good friend. May the boss continue to get rich. All right, go back to sleep. I'm quite annoyed right now, Gu Shan grumpily said. The jade gourd pendant didn't go back into the inventory bag right away. It slowly circled around Gu Shan, carefully observing Gu Shan's expression. Shio, shio? Did she fall out of love? Gu Shan didn't say anything. Shio, 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 shio? Ah, your wife ran away with someone else. Gu Shan didn't care about this top-grade jade pendant at all. Seeing his indifferent expression, the jade gourd pendant suddenly froze in the air and acted like it just realized something. Shio, 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 shio? Don't tell me you don't have much soul points left. It landed on the back of Gu Shan's hand and sent all of its soul points into Gu Shan's body. This time, Gu Shan was a little moved. He held the jade gourd pendant and said, "If you really want to know, there's no harm in telling you. Actually, there's something I can't do here, so I'm a little troubled." Swish, swish. Taking a dump? No, it's an advancement. The gourd exclaimed, swoosh, 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 swoosh. Of course, this is the demon realm. Gu Shan smiled bitterly. I know. That's why I'm still thinking about it. The jade gourd pendant flew up, circled around him for a bit, then entered his storage bag. Gu Shan didn't mind. This jade pendant was already very powerful. You couldn't expect it to know everything. He fell into silence and began to ponder over a question. How much time does the Earth Sword have left? It wasn't easy for me to obtain a time freeze spell from the Lord of Total Distortion. But even the Lord of Total Distortion didn't know how long this temporal technique would last. After a few days of asking around, I finally understood the general situation of the Lord of Total Distortion subordinates. There were very few evil creatures who had a time-related mystic-type skill. No evil creature in the entire Chaos Demonic Sea could use a technique like Time Freeze anymore. In other words, once this temporal technique on the Earth Sword runs out, I won't be able to do anything. Gu Shan clenched his fist tightly. No, I can't wait any longer. Gu Shan abruptly stood up, opened the door, and left. He quickly ran along the ship's path until he reached the edge of the ship. Xiechi ruler, where are you going? An evil creature guard came up and asked. I'm making dinner, Gu Shan replied. Very well. Please be careful after saying so. The evil creature guard didn't ask any more questions. The Lord of Total Distortion had a team of chefs, but other than himself and his 2 daughters, no one else was allowed to share his cooking. All evil creatures had to go into the sea to catch some food for themselves. Of course, some unlucky ones would also be caught and eaten by demonic sea creatures. Fortunately, with Magic Dragon's fingernails hanging on the ship, many demonic sea creatures would run away as soon as they got close. So it wasn't a problem for the evil creatures to catch some seafood from the sea. Gu Shan leapt into the sea. The Chaoyin sword let out a cry and followed closely behind him. In a split second, all the seawater in front of Gu Shan parted to form a long path, allowing him to quickly fly through the deep sea. Half an hour later, Gu Shan was already far away from the giant ship. He was flying at full speed, occasionally using ground shrink to fly several tens of thousands of miles in a single breath before gradually slowing down. This place was very far away from the giant ship. After a while, Gu Shan stopped. He wasn't going forward but downwards. Down. A few thousand meters. 10,000 meters. 50,000 meters. 100,000 meters. 190,000 meters. 300,000 meters. 600,000 meters. 1,070,000 meters. Legend has it that after passing the wood bristle land, the ocean abyss would no longer be able to reach the bottom. But Gu Shan felt that even though this place wasn't the ocean abyss, it was still so deep that it couldn't be reached. If the Chaoyin sword hadn't controlled the seawater to retreat, Gu Shan wouldn't have been able to do much with his current cultivation. Gu Shan stood at the bottom of the sea, admiring the giant sea creatures swimming by. This place was very far away from the giant ship, and even further away from the true ocean abyss. Since it was at the bottom of the sea, there was no need to worry about the Lord of Total Distortion or ancient demonic sea creatures that were over 100 million years old. As for those demonic sea creatures that were over 10 million years old, Gu Shan took out Magic Dragon's fingernails and casually tossed them on the ground. Many of the giant sea monsters that were secretly watching immediately scattered when they saw this thing. Don't be ridiculous. If they were to be scratched by this thing, they would only be able to live for a few 100,000 years. Chow Yin's sword, give me some space, just enough for a few dozen people to stand on. With a woo-woo sound, the Chow Yin sword manifested an even wider boundary around Gu Shan. "You've worked hard," Gu Shan said. He took out a pill, ate it, and began to rest. Half an incense stick's worth of time later, he opened his eyes. His entire body had returned to its peak state. It was now that he finally spoke the words he wanted to say. Breakthrough. As soon as he said so, a line of blood-red text appeared in front of his eyes. "You've chosen to break through." At the center of the kindling UI, the soul point slot below the lapis card, sword cultivator Gu Shan had turned into a burning flame. The blood-red text continued to appear. "The Void Wanderer tribulation is about to descend. Attention, as you are a cultivator, you will face both the wind and fire tribulation this time. After the countdown, you will face your tribulation." All the text on the blood-red UI disappeared. The wind had begun. The wind tribulation had arrived first. Various noises began to resound from the empty space that the Chow Yin sword created. Flesh. A cultivator's flesh. Another idiot. I'm going to eat him. What is this place? This seems to be the bottom of the ocean. Strange. Why do I feel like I didn't go to the primordial heaven realm? One powerful evil creature after another appeared. Gu Shan silently stood there without saying a word, until all the evil creatures who accepted the seat of tribulation had arrived. The devils were observing their surroundings in bewilderment. They suddenly realized that this was all the doing of this tribulation cultivator. Bastard. I've never heard of a cultivator facing their tribulation underwater. Human cultivator, did you choose this place as your place of death? But why doesn't the water fall down? Could it be his ability? The evil creature stared at Gu Shan and spoke at once. Gu Shan looked up and looked around. "I'm sorry. My time is precious," he muttered. A second later. Chapter 887. This was possibly the fastest wind tribulation to have ended since the creation of heaven's tribulation. Under the unparalleled pressure of the water, the evil creatures all disappeared without a trace. They were directly crushed into fine powder that slowly dissipated at the bottom of the ocean. The only person left at the bottom of the ocean was Gu Shan. The Chow Yin sword held up the seawater, allowing him to safely float on top of a dry, empty area. Gu Shan glanced at the void of space. A line of blood-red text hovered on the kindling. UI frowny face, as the evil creatures died, due to the pressure of the water, you will not be able to obtain soul points from this battle. After Gu Shan read through it, this line of blood-red text disappeared, replaced by a new one. Frowny face soul points are currently dissipating. There are no other soul points nearby that can be absorbed. Following the principle of not wasting soul points, the system has begun to collect the dissipating soul points as a salvage measure. 38,279 soul points have been collected. You've obtained this amount of soul points. Gu Shan was stunned. Is that even possible? He couldn't help but ask. Kindling, even if I didn't kill them, I can still obtain soul points? It shouldn't be possible, but it would be a pity if the soul points dissipated, so it's best to collect them for our use. The kindling, UI replied. Gu Shan nodded and said nothing else. An order. That has no order. No, it still has its own principles. By hook or by crook, there was no longer any wind. The wind tribulation was over. The air was filled with strange noises. A cluster of flames appeared from the void of space and lightly landed on Gu Shan's shoulder. If you look carefully, you'll notice that the flame is almost transparent. It didn't affect Gu Shan's body at all. The flame quickly expanded, spreading towards Gu Qingshan's entire body. But Gu Qingshan only silently waited without moving. This was a flame that could destroy everything. It was currently penetrating all of Gu Qingshan's acupoints and meridians. So if she tried to move, she would most likely be burned to ashes. A few moments later, the flame finally enveloped Gu Qingshan completely. A curious reaction took place. Endless flames spread out, forming a scene of the world in front of Gu Qingshan. The flames dissipated. The world was clearly visible. Mountains, blue skies, rivers and streams, immortals coming and going. This was the Mahesvara realm. Who would have thought that it was the Mahesvara realm that resonated with him? The so-called fire tribulation was to lead a cultivator's soul to a certain heavenly realm. Cultivators must return their souls to their bodies within a certain period of time. Once the time was up, the cultivator's body would be incinerated by the tribulation fire. In this way, the tribulation would fail. The cultivator's soul would remain in that realm forever. However, if it was the Mahesvara realm, many cultivators would rather stay here, because this was a wonderful heavenly realm. Even if a cultivator's body was burned away by the tribulation fire, their soul vessel would remain in the Mahesvara realm, allowing them to live for 10,000 years. Comparatively speaking, even if one overcame the wandering tribulations and advanced successfully, a cultivator would still have to experience numerous tribulations and advance without end. Rather than dying in one of the tribulations, it would be better for their soul vessel to remain in this realm and live freely for 10,000 years. Anyone who attempted to face their tribulation in this place would become everyone's target. Every soul vessel that remained here would do everything in their power to stop the cultivator from advancing. Gu Qingshan silently sighed and prepared himself. He took a step forward. Instantly, his body was still surrounded by the tribulation fire, but his soul vessel had left the bottom of the sea and entered the Mahesvara realm. The very next moment, Gu Qingshan found himself standing in a spacious courtyard. The voices around him entered his ears. Laughter, chatting, drinking and chatting. Cheering, singing, and voices filled the air. A grand banquet was being held in the courtyard. Someone loudly declared, "Aha! We have a new friend here today. Let us welcome him." Many people continued to drink and enjoy themselves. But even more people were looking at Gu Qingshan with smiles on their faces. Gu Qingshan clasped his fist and smiled. "Greetings, fellow Taoists," someone happily declared. "You're a good one. Come and have a drink." Gu Qingshan really did walk over and clinked a glass of liquor with everyone. "How should I address you, fellow Taoist? This humble one's surname is Gu, so it's fellow Taoist Gu. Did you also come to this divine mountain to enjoy eternal bliss? Ever since I heard of this humble one has been looking forward to it. The path of cultivation is a long one. Rather than worrying about life and death every day, it would be better for my soul to return to this place and enjoy eternal bliss." Gu Qingshan raised his glass and smiled. After saying that, he took another big gulp of wine. "This humble one can finally bid farewell to the life of cultivation that I've been living in fear for. Come, let me toast you all," he loudly declared. Another glass. This pushed the atmosphere of the banquet to its climax. Everyone around him cheered up and raised their glasses in response. Someone praised, "Fellow Taoist's heart is truly magnanimous. Perhaps one of the fairy maidens has taken a liking to you right now." The female cultivators covered their mouths and giggled. "This young man is so handsome, and to be able to enter the Mahesvara realm at such a young age, his cultivation talent must be top-notch. He also just came from the outside world. Unlike the rest of us who have been living in a drunken stupor, he must know a lot of interesting things." "What good husband?" one of the female cultivators asked. "Fellow Taoist, what do you cultivate?" It was a clear and pleasant voice. So familiar. But this voice was clearly a bit more restrained, not as murderous as it was before. Gu Qingshan looked over. The female cultivator's face was still as beautiful as ever. This was the natural beauty of their race. It was said that within the samsara, the women of their race were the most outstanding, many of them possessing beauty that could topple cities. After the Emperor of the Heaven Realm saw their beauty, he didn't hesitate to wage war in order to take away the women of their race. It felt like it was only yesterday that they first met. She looked at him and smiled. I can sense a unique presence of a spell from you, sir. Spell, huh? It probably isn't a spell. But then again, if I reveal my identity as a sword cultivator, a lot of people would feel uneasy. When have sword cultivators ever been willing to live in a drunken stupor? Then it's a spell? Gu Shan stared at her and calmly replied, This humble one cultivates ice spells. The female cultivator was surprised. Ah, I would like to exchange blows with you, sir. This humble one has only just arrived. I can drink, but there's no need to exchange blows at this point. The other cultivators also tried to persuade the female cultivator, saying that it's not a good time to fight, since it's only just arrived. After being persuaded for a while, the female cultivator gave up. She then said, Ice spells are quite rare. Why don't you show us a thing or two for us to observe? Hearing that, Gu Shan casually formed a hand seal. He had all of the god of frost and chill's ice spells, but since he wasn't a divinity, the power of his spells was greatly reduced, unable to reach the level of a Paragon Realm Peak stage cultivator. But in front of a group of Void Beholder Realm Peak stage cultivators, his ice spells still appeared to be quite profound. A long ice bridge extended from the courtyard, passing through the courtyard and extending all the way to the sky. This ice bridge was built on a verdant mountain that was suspended in mid-air. Good. What a good spell. Wonderful. The cultivators loudly cheered. Unfortunately, it's a bit late today, and the banquet is still going on. Otherwise, this humble one would like to go to that mountain for a bit, Gu Shan regretfully said. The years are long. Fellow Dao Seeker Gu, you'll have plenty of chances, someone said. That's right. That's right. Next time I'll go with fellow Dao Seeker Gu. Everyone smiled in agreement. After Gu Shan showed off his spells and said what he said just now, the cultivators became a bit closer to him. The banquet continued. Gu Shan had a good tolerance for alcohol, a straightforward person, a pleasant voice, and knew how to be tactful, so he quickly got along with the cultivators. Half the night passed. The banquet was finally coming to an end. At this point, the female cultivator came forward, raised her glass, and looked at Gu Shan. Fellow Dao Seeker Gu, would you like to drink with me? The female cultivator asked. Everyone roared with laughter. Quite a few male cultivators appeared envious. That's my wish. Gu Shan received the glass, took a sip, and smiled. My dojo is at Bright Clear Peak. Since it's your first time here and you're not familiar with the roads, please come with me, the female cultivator said. Gu Shan bowed. Please lead the way. Fairy, the female cultivator nodded, then leapt up into the sky. Gu Shan followed closely behind. The other cultivators just watched as he left, but couldn't really stop him. It's fine. This fellow Dao Seeker Gu is a good person. Nothing will happen, one of the female cultivators said. Another female cultivator also followed up. Big Sister Yuji has never done anything wrong. What are you worried about? As soon as they said that, most of the cultivators gave up on the idea. Only a few male cultivators still had hesitant expressions on their faces. Another female cultivator laughed mockingly. Do you still want to go to Bright Clear Peak? Saying that out loud was pointless. No matter how much the cultivators wanted to, they couldn't just run into the two of them when they were in love and ruin their plans. It was only then that the banquet ended. Gu Shan followed the female cultivator and landed on a mountain. The female cultivator didn't say a single word, just led him through a mountain path, into a waterfall, then across a small bridge over a stream until the path ahead became clear. It was a palace. It's safe now, the female cultivator said. The indifferent expression on her face faded away, replaced by a bright smile. You didn't expect this, did you? I really didn't. You've been waiting for me here? How did you manage to do that? Gu Shan sighed. Of course I can. The female cultivator carefully looked at him, without blinking, as if wanting to carve his appearance into her mind forever. I left a tear on you. That is a divine skill unique to Azuras, one that can only be used once in a lifetime. Chapter 888. The Azura Palace. You don't look like you're here to stop my tribulation, Gu Qingshan's voice came, followed by a female voice. Of course not. I'm here to help you. The female Azura personally served Gu Qingshan a cup of tea. Gu Qingshan received the tea, took a sip, and muttered to herself. I thought people would only shed tears when they were sad. I never thought it was a skill. The female Azura smiled. The tear of Azura showed me the tribulation of life and death that you're destined to face. So I came here in advance to prepare myself. Tribulation of life and death? I've never lacked tribulation of life and death. That's right, I was dazzled by it. But then I realized that the Mahasvara realm was the most suitable place for me. So I came here, Gu Qingshan doubtfully asked. But I was clearly in a phantom image of the age of old. So how did I travel back several 10,000 years and meet you in a fire tribulation? What is a phantom image? The female Azura asked. A very unique and powerful technique, Gu Qingshan replied. The female Azura explained. The lightning tribulation only requires the power of a world to activate. The wind tribulation requires the power of the Wraith realm to activate, while the fire tribulation breaks through the limit of space-time to force your soul vessel to return to the real time and reach the realm of heavens to face this tribulation. Gu Qingshan slowly understood. That's right. A phantom image is a technique. This technique preserves a true moment of the age of old. But I'm clearly not at that moment yet. So as soon as the fire tribulation manifested, my soul vessel immediately escaped from that technique and returned to the correct time flow. My soul vessel returned to several 10,000 years in the future to face the fire tribulation, but my body is still in the phantom image of several 10,000 years ago. This really is, the female Azura saw through his expression and nodded. You need to quickly return. The flow of time on your body is too chaotic. Who knows when the tribulation flame on your body will burn ahead of time? It's good that I came here in advance, so I've already prepared everything. She led Gu Qingshan through many palaces, traps, and checkpoints. In the end, they passed through a maze of secret tunnels before they finally reached the depths of the mountain. There was nothing else here, only a cold and serene spring. The two of them stopped by the spring. This is the icy, tranquil emotion, extinguishing divine spring that I spent a lot of effort to obtain. It can only be used once. Everything in the fire trial will be extinguished by this spring. You will directly pass the trial, the female Azura said. Gu Qingshan quietly felt the extraordinariness of the spring water inside. You don't have to do so much for me. The female Azura lowered her head. Actually, before I reincarnated, I thought about it for a long time and finally decided to use the tear of Azura. Why? Forgetting everything and starting over is too stupid for me. I'd rather remember you and wait for the moment of our reunion in the endless years. Her voice was soft and gentle, but it spoke of an unbreakable will. Gu Qingshan heaved a long sigh and said, I remember telling you that I have a girlfriend. The female Azura looked at him and asked in surprise, Is that so? I can see that you're still a virgin. Gu Qingshan's voice became weaker. Is that very important? The female Azura didn't want to embarrass him any further and continued. The Mahasvara king has 48 dependents. A Sumer lord has 120 followers. I'm not greedy. I'll just become one of them in the future. I'm not Mahasvara king and definitely not a Sumer lord, Gu Qingshan replied. The female Azura smiled. You're currently about to reach Void Wanderer realm. Above Void Wanderer is Void Revolution realm, 3,000 Worlds realm, Paragon realm, then the Yama king realm, Mahasvara king realm, and Sumer lord realm. You're the man I've chosen. You'll definitely continue to grow stronger and become an entity on the same level as the heavenly kings and mountain lords. Once you become Mahasvara king, under the influence of prayers, the 48 dependents will come to you without asking. All of them will be people close to you. I'm only taking a spot as soon as possible. Gu Qingshan smiled bitterly. Are you so sure that I'll become such a powerful entity? Of course, you're the man I've chosen. The female Azura smirked and replied. Gu Qingshan was speechless, then suddenly remembered something and asked, How did you reach the Mahasvara realm? Could you have done that with just the tear of Azura? Of course not. It was actually during the Battle of Huang Quan. I was the one who discovered the heavenly god scheme. Then I brought the Devil King Warden Rod to the human realm and offered it to you, helping you gain control over the trillions of dead people. When things changed, it was me who stood up and used the sentiments of a human mother and son to encourage the dead to remain in the human realm. Among the countless dead people, my merit was the most outstanding, so I was able to use my merit on the tear of Azura, granting it unprecedented power of kindness, and brought me to the Mahesvara realm to wait for you, wait for me. Gu Qingshan muttered. Even when she was still a dead person, she had already helped me a lot without saying anything. Then after the Battle of Huang Quan, she gave up all of her merit just to wait here and help me face my tribulation. Gu Qingshan really couldn't say anything. The female Azura looked at him and spoke reluctantly. It's getting late. You need to go back quickly. Your name, Gu Qingshan suddenly said. I still don't know your name. The female Azura was surprised. Then tears silently flowed down her cheeks. She wiped her tears away, smiled at Gu Qingshan, and spoke softly. My name is Yi Luo. I'll wait for you here until you become an Asvara king. Saying so, she pushed Gu Qingshan into the spring. Forgive? Instantly, boundless karmic fire erupted from Gu Qingshan's body. The fire tribulation had begun. All the flames manifested into illusory images that constantly triggered Gu Qingshan's soul vessel. These were all the sins he had committed over the course of his life, mixed with his emotions and desires. All of them erupted at once. But Gu Qingshan's body had already been completely soaked by the cold spring water. So even though the karmic fire was burning brightly, it couldn't get close to him. In a split second, Gu Qingshan felt himself arriving at a familiar place. Shenwu World. Everyone had died in battle. Xie Daoling's body was lying on the ground. Qin Shaolu was hugging Xiao Xiao, crying his heart out. Xiao Xiao was also dead. From afar, countless gigantic and ferocious soul shrieker were rushing towards this place. No, Gu Qingshan's eyes were bloodshot. All of a sudden, a bone-chilling sensation struck him, causing his hazy mind to regain its clarity. He understood right away. Right, this isn't the real scene. Shifu and the others have already left the 900 million world layers and are still alive and well. While he was thinking that, the image suddenly faded. Another scene appeared in his mind. Gu Qingshan's mind once again sank into oblivion. Before he knew it, he had arrived at a grand wedding banquet. I'm holding in his hand, toasting to the guests. Su Shui'er suddenly rushed out. She killed herself right in front of Gu Qingshan. Gu Qingshan's heart sank, but before he could react, he was assaulted by a frigid sensation. This is also fake. As soon as he realized the truth, the image faded away. While he was feeling both relieved and fearful, the next scene abruptly enveloped Gu Qingshan. Gu Qingshan's homeworld. All the humans were dead. Yi Feili had been sent into the mouth of a monster. Various illusions appeared in Gu Qingshan's mind. But with the support of the icy, tranquil emotion extinguishing divine spring, he didn't need to face these illusions of despair. He quickly made it through all the illusions like a hot knife through butter. At this point, the entire Bright Mountain was also resounding with the sound of heavy impact. Countless angry voices resounded from outside. Ji Luo, you dare to help someone face their tribulation? No one can face their tribulation here. Stop. Give that person to me. The mountain continued to tremble. Obviously, the people outside had noticed the fluctuations of the fire tribulation and had begun to attack. The soul vessels of these Mahesvara realm cultivators wouldn't allow any other cultivators to face their fire tribulation. Ji Luo glanced at Gu Qingshan one last time. She turned around, stood in front of Gu Qingshan, and formed a hand seal with both hands. Rumble, rumble. Every barrier, every iron wall, every trap and labyrinth was activated. These were the results of her many years of painstaking preparation. The mountain of the Mahesvara realm couldn't be easily broken through. No one could quickly break through these obstacles. Behind her, the flames on Gu Qingshan's body slowly went out. The icy, tranquil emotion, extinguishing divine spring, also turned into white mist and slowly faded away. The fire tribulation had passed. Chapter 889. At the bottom of the ocean, the Chowing sword silently hovered behind Gu Qin Shan, creating a cool and dry space. The flames around Gu Qin Shan's body were becoming more and more intense. At a certain point, the temperature of the flames had already begun to distort the void of space. At the border between the void of space and the ocean, white steam began to appear. Even Gu Qin Shan's hair began to curl. The Chowing sword was anxiously vibrating. It could tell that the terrifying flames were slowly but surely trying to corrode Gu Qin Shan's body. Under its control, a few streams of water flowed from the ocean into this space, pouring down on Gu Qin Shan's body. But before the streams of water could even get close, they were evaporated by the intense heat. The Chowing sword cried out in pain, anxiously circling around. At this point, Gu Qin Shan opened his eyes. Ho! In the blink of an eye, the flames that enveloped him went out. I'm sorry for making you worry, Gu Qin Shan said apologetically. When his soul vessel returned just now, he heard the Chowing sword's cries of pain. The Chowing sword was overjoyed and began circling around him. Don't worry, I've successfully passed my tribulation, Gu Qin Shan said. He looked at the kindling UI. Lines of blood-red text appeared one after another. Frowny face, wind and fire dual tribulation has ended. You become a void wanderer realm cultivator. Advancement quest has been completed. Soul points required for next advancement, 700,000. Current soul points, 310,000. The system will undergo a short period of adjustment, temporarily shutting down all functions to enter evolutionary mode. All the blood-red text disappeared. Gu Qin Shan suddenly called out, "Wait a minute!" A large question mark appeared on the kindling UI. Gu Qin Shan asked, "Why aren't there any thaumaturgy quests for advancement?" Lines of blood-red text appeared on the kindling UI. Frowny face, the Order does not have any thaumaturgy quests for human cultivators. The system will now enter the adjustment period. If there's anything, please wait for the system's adjustment to finish before communicating. The entire kindling UI disappeared from Gu Qin Shan's sight. It began to prepare for evolution. Gu Qin Shan pondered and silently compared the War God UI to the kindling order. From a thaumaturgy perspective, the War God UI's abilities were much more powerful. Not only that, the Battle God title, Battle God quests, Battle God skills, and other functions could help a cultivator fight better. Once the Fire Seed evolved into Origin, he would be able to use his soul power to exchange for a powerful demon god to help him in battle. To put it bluntly, this was still a foreign object. However, kindling's desire for soul points far surpassed the War God UI's. As long as soul power appeared, it would think of a way to obtain it. Gu Qin Shan shook her head and was about to leave when a card appeared in front of her. Emerald card, Sword Cultivator Gu Qin Shan. This was his own body card. 3 more cards appeared in front of him. Bleed, True Crimson Demon Spear, Black Mist Armor. A sense of realization appeared in Gu Qin Shan's mind. Following my advancement, regardless of whether an order exists or not, I can now draw a new card. This drawing is completely random. No one would know which card they would be able to draw from the emerald cards in the condemnation deck. Gu Qin Shan didn't think too much about it, and casually drew a card from the void of space. Suddenly, a card appeared in his hand. The front of the card depicted a full set of smithing tools, with an empty space below where the card's name and function were written. Consumable, Armor Blacksmith's full set of tools. When you use this card, you'll be able to strengthen a certain function of a piece of armor. Gu Qin Shan didn't hesitate and used the method that Little Dust told her before to put this card on the Black Mist Armor card. Activate, Gu Qin Shan ordered. The Armor Blacksmith's full set of tools card gave off a bright glow. It slowly sank into the Black Mist Armor card and disappeared without a trace. Very quickly, the description of a certain function changed at the empty space below the Black Mist Armor card. Black Mist's Embrace. When you stand still, the black mist will conceal your whereabouts. Only enemies 3 realms higher than you will be able to notice you. Gu Shan smiled. Before, it was 2 realms higher. Now it's 3 realms higher. I'm currently at Void Wanderer Realm. After Void Wanderer Realm are Void Revolution Realm, 3000 Worlds Realm, and Paragon Realm. In other words, when I want to hide, only enemies at Paragon Realm or higher will be able to notice me. This is already quite good. After I advance to Void Revolution Realm and use the Realm Breaker Pill to reach 3000 Worlds Realm, only Masvara King Realm Cultivators will be able to notice me. Such a powerful concealment ability, as expected of the Demon King's armor. He held the Black Mist armor card in his hand and lightly shook it. In an instant, the entire set of armor that gave off black mist was donned. Everything has been taken care of. I need to hurry back to the ship. Choween, let's go. The location of the tribulation was extremely far away from the ship, and it was millions of meters below the surface of the ocean. Gu Shan was quickly flying through the air. While doing his best, he casually swung his sword at the void of space. The entire void of space was cut open by his sword, revealing the chaotic space vortex. Gu Shan silently nodded. The so-called 90 Void Wanderer. I can now cut open 90 layers of worlds without the help of any external objects and enter them at will. The only regretful thing is that I'm currently inside the phantom images of the age of old. When the divine race imitated the bygone era humans to create worlds, to avoid being discovered by the desolate race, they purposefully placed those worlds as far away from the primordial heaven realm and primordial wraith realm as possible. Because of that, when Gu Shan opened the void of space, all he saw was a chaotic space vortex. No worlds appeared in front of Gu Shan's eyes. Time quickly passed. Gu Shan finally reached the area near the giant ship. He first caught some seafood in the ocean, then slowly moved towards the giant ship before jumping back on board. The evil creatures had already recognized him, so they didn't stop him. The evil creature that greeted him before also greeted him. After all, it only took Gu Shan a bit more than an hour to go back and forth. Some of the evil creatures had amazing appetites, so they went into the ocean even earlier than Gu Shan and still haven't returned. Gu Shan silently felt fortunate. It was fortunate that Ji Luo had already prepared to help him face his tribulation in the Masvara realm. Ji Luo, Gu Shan, silently sighed. Suddenly, a voice resounded in his mind. What's the matter? You don't seem to be in a good mood, Gu Shan realized. This was the silent ruler's telepathy. Ever since they fought side by side, their relationship had turned from strangers to acquaintances who could occasionally exchange a few words. As he was about to look up, the silent ruler's voice resounded again. Don't look for me, otherwise you'll attract attention. What's the matter? Gu Shan noticed his nervousness and asked. The Lord of Total Distortion had put down a small boat and was leaving this place with some of his subordinates. What? Where? The bow of the ship. Gu Shan released his inner sight to scan the area in front of him. The bow of the ship was heavily guarded. 2 evil creatures had unleashed a series of techniques to completely conceal this place. The Lord of Total Distortion's guards were stationed here. No one could approach or spy on them. Quite obviously, something was happening here. However, for the last few days, the entire ship had entered a state of high alert. Large-scale operations were frequently taking place, all of which were under the direct command of the Lord of Total Distortion. No other evil creatures were allowed to spy on them. Because of that, the evil creatures had also gotten used to such strict security measures. No evil creature dared to offend the Lord of Total Distortion and try to check the situation at the bow of the ship. It was likely that the Silent Lord had used some special method to find out about this matter. What can you see? What do you think? Gu Shan asked. The silent ruler didn't reply. After a while, she sent her telepathy. The Lord of Total Distortion is boarding the ship. It seems they're about to leave. Can we catch up to them? Gu Shan asked. How is that possible? The silent ruler smiled bitterly. I'm already doing everything I can to observe from afar. As long as I get closer, the Lord of Total Distortion would definitely notice. Gu Shan fell silent. Indeed, the Lord of Total Distortion was the strongest evil king, so he had to be extremely cautious and cautious when he moved. What exactly is he planning to do now that he's abandoning the entire city of evil creatures? Will he come back? No one knew, and no one dared to try and find out. The Lord of Total Distortion must have made preparations beforehand. Any evil creature that tried to approach would be noticed. Guqin Shan thought for a few moments. With the Lord of Total Distortion's strength, he wouldn't need to go through all the trouble of riding a ship if he wanted to do something. Unless he was planning to embark on a long voyage, or had already decided to leave this ship. Did you see his 2 daughters? Guqin Shan asked again. I did. They were the first aboard the ship. That's why I felt that this wasn't normal and wanted to discuss it with you, the silent ruler replied. Guqin Shan's heart sank. Even his 2 daughters had boarded the ship, so the Lord of Total Distortion most likely wouldn't return to this ship. Why is that? Guqin Shan pondered, then tapped her inventory bag. The jade gourd pendant jumped out from her inventory bag. Show. It seemed to be moving slowly. Its voice also sounded a bit lazy. Don't sleep. I've prepared some soul points for you, Guqin Shan told it. The jade gourd pendant immediately became spirited. Xiao. It's true, but there's something I need to trouble you with, Xiao. Xiao. Go to the bow of the ship, follow that small ship to see what happens, then come back and report to me, Xiao. The jade gourd pendant responded. With a flash of white light, it disappeared in front of Guqin Shan. It flew towards the bow of the ship, but none of the evil creatures noticed it. Only Guqin Shan could see it clearly. Indeed, since the jade pendant adorable had the thaumaturgy, spotless jade, it didn't need to worry about being discovered by the Lord of Total Distortion. So it was a good time to investigate. Silent Ruler, thank you for your information, Guqin Shan said. Since he was facing his tribulation just now, he didn't know what happened on the ship. Fortunately, the Silent Liege had informed him of this matter. Otherwise, he might have missed out on this matter due to a freak combination of circumstances. No need to thank me. I can feel a chill for what happened just now. It's enveloping me, the Silent Ruler replied. Then why don't you leave and return to your evil realm? Guqin Shan asked. I have a contract with the Lord of Total Distortion, so I must complete this mission, the Silent Ruler replied. Guqin Shan fell silent. He has always abided by the principle of fair trade. The other party sacrificed a life to save the Earth Sword. Then as a trade, I'll help him cross the sea. This is a very fair trade, and I'm willing to do my best to repay him. But that's all. At this moment, Guqin Shan also sensed some sort of indescribable malice. Just like the omen of death that he felt before he went out to sea, this entire situation was filled with eeriness. If the Lord of Total Distortion really did have other plans, then this wasn't what he said from the start. Dash that you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.